She had previously learned from Lafitte and others that Ross had ordered her not to be killed and they kept her on board, but then Ross went into the Impel Down, and this matter had no further context and they did not know how to deal with her, so Lafitte and others put her under house arrest. And now, Ross is back. How would he deal with her, or how would the fate play her? They are all tied to Ross. If he thinks she is too dangerous, he is likely to handle her in one sentence. It is also possible for him to throw her to Trafalgar Law for some terrifying transformation tests. In short, Sugar's heart is filled with fear at any point. Your abilities are a little too dangerous, and you used to be a Doflamingo family member. If you don't obey, well, it would be a pity to kill you. Ross put his hand on his chin and thought. In fact, he has many ways, whether it is Lafitte's deep hypnosis, or after Law has mastered the soul exchange surgery, where you would be directly able to exchange Sugar's soul for a reliable person and there would be no problem. No, don't kill me. Sugar was scared by Ross's out-loud thoughts, and she looked like she was about to cry and said with fear in her voice, I will be very obedient. Although Lafitte and others did not intentionally frighten and torture her during the period on board, they made her timider, and at the moment it seemed that she was going to be scared unconscious. Ross stared at her calmly for a moment and said, there's only one way to live. That's obedience. If you start with the crew and behave well, you may be promoted to a cadre in the future. Sugar nodded. After eating Hobi no Mi, in addition to the body being fixed at the same age and no longer growing up, the mind has also become fixed at this age in some aspects, which may be the side effect of Hobi no Mi. Then, you can move freely on board, but you must wear this glove. Ross nodded and took out a very thin glove from his pocket, the end of which was connected with two metallic-colored rings. That's the characteristic Seastone Explosion wristband. With his current level of observation hockey, he's not afraid of other people to sneak attacks even when he is sleeping. He can remain vigilant and he is not worried about whatever tricks Sugar has up her lives, but other people are different. In the event that Sugar turns someone into a toy, they will all suddenly lose their memories of that person and it will be very troublesome. It's ugly. Sugar looked at the pair of gloves and couldn't help but say, but as soon as she looked at Ross's eyes, she became so scared that she quickly took the gloves and put them on. The slightly delicate Seastone explosive wristband fits perfectly on her slender wrist and cannot be pulled directly off the front of her palm. When the Seastone wristband was placed on the wrist, her body suddenly became a little soft, but still kept normal. It seems that there is no problem. Ross used observation hockey to capture the action of the toys outside and noticed that the toys did not show signs of turning back to human beings, so he slightly nodded. Seastone's limitations on the human body vary from person to person. This Seastone wristband is a small-scale trait that can limit Sugar's hands without making her powers totally ineffective. Sugar wearing a pair of small gloves sprouted a lot more than before, and Ross thought it should be misconception after her "danger" had been eliminated. Seastone. Sugar senses the changes and knows that the wristband is Seastone, but the wristband is idiosyncratic, and it takes a lot of effort to take it off after wearing it. And after she put it on, she didn't have the strength to take it out. This wristband should not be taken down casually, and don't let your toys take it out for you. If you take it, it will be like this. Ross took a slightly larger wristband from his pocket, and when he closed it again, the entire wristband exploded and it was filled with smoke. Ah! Sugar was shocked, her eyes shone with terror, and she looked at Ross with a look that said he was a devil. Ross's eyes flashed with a glimmer of satisfaction and he turned to walk outside the door, saying, "Come on, follow me out." Sugar looked at the wristband she was wearing, muttered twice, and finally sighed and went out honestly. Devil. Making this kind of thing. They're all bad guys, go and die, 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 go to hell. She kept cursing in her heart, but there was nothing she could do about it. The wristband was set up just right, so she couldn't resist at all. It's impossible to stealthily turn anyone into a toy, she can only obey orders honestly. In the hall. Because this is a giant ship, the hall is huge. Several giants and Trafalgar Law, Nico Robin, and others are gathered in the hall. Captain has been in for a long time, he won't be turned into a toy, would he? Goldberg, who knew Sugar's ability, scratched his scalp and showed a worried expression. Girth knocked on Goldberg's head and said, "Do you think Captain will be as stupid as you?" Fishu Erman leaned on the corner of the huge sofa and smiled and said, "If he becomes a toy, we would have lost our memory of him. Now you should worry about how Captain would torture the child. Maybe she would be thrown out. To correct you, she's not a child. She's not much younger than you. Law sat on the other side, carrying the devil blade in his arms, and opened his mouth to Fishu Ermin. "Oh, I forgot." Fishu Ermin tapped his forehead. Robin sat on the shoulder of Girth, the giant ship doctor, tilting her head slightly. "But anyway, she's still a child physically." Oh, as soon as this sentence came out, Fishu Ermin and others suddenly felt a little weird and the conversation seemed to be offset in a strange direction. Just then Lafitte came in from outside and said, "The wind is all right, and the toys haven't changed back. It seems that the wristband experiment was successful." "How could it fail?" Trafalgar Law spoke in silence. "The wristband was made by him and Lafitte, using his abilities to cooperate with Lafitte's fantastic ideas and techniques. The inside is sea stone, and the outside is an explosive core similar to a slave collar, but the weight has been reduced a lot. The power has also been reduced a lot, focusing more on the limitations of sea stone. The first one was the slightly larger wristband that Ross blew up. At that time, he, Robin and Lafitte all put on their experiments to make accurate measurements. Whoop, anyway, that ability is too dangerous. If she is allowed to move freely on board the ship, no one can rest assured without this special prop." Lafitte laughed. Just as everyone gathered in the hall, Ross walked out of the inner cabin. Behind Ross, Sugar, wearing a compact glove and wristband, came out with her head drooping, looking weak. "What's the matter? Is sea stone's weight too big?" Robin couldn't help but ask as she saw the pitiful look of Sugar. Ross reached for Sugar's hair and said, "No, it shouldn't be sea stone's problem. Come on, laugh." Ross told Sugar as he talked to Robin. Sugar was inspired in an instant, and the whole person became much more energetic. Robin. She eventually came over with black lines on her head and took Sugar away from Ross. In fact, Sugar was able to remain safe on the ship because she protected her from time to time. Other things aside, Sugar on the outside is just a little girl, but because of Hobi Hobi no Mi's ability, Robin hasn't been in much contact with her. Now she wears a safe wristband, and all her worries and precautions can be put down. "Hey." Sugar was picked up by Robin, her eyes widened and she immediately becomes spoiled. Robin liked her like this and could not help but smile and touch her head. "Since you've been brought out by Captain, you're now the crew member of this ship. Don't be afraid." Ross. Looking at Robin in silence, Ross asked, "Is it too late for me to shut her back now?" Robin stared at Ross with a smile and shook her head. "Yes." Click. Now Robin is against him. Ross's eyes were slightly wide and he glanced at Sugar. As a result, Sugar was shocked and buried her head in Robin's arms. The picture had an inexplicable familiarity. Yes. Anyway, it's a loli, not a puppy, who depends on Robin. He doesn't mind if she depend on him at night. With this in mind, passing Robin, Ross casually said, "If you want a child so much, I can give you one." Robin. This sentence is naturally said with a distorted voice and others weren't able to hear it, but Sugar heard it and her body instantly stiffened and hot air came out of her head. Even if her body is that of a little girl, her mind is mature and she understands a lot of things. But then again, Ross glanced at Sugar. If he used sea stone to completely suppress Sugar's ability, would she change from lowly to being similar to Robin in an instant? But then the clothes will certainly burst in an instant. He does have the opportunity to experiment. Well, as you can see now, Sugar will temporarily become a trial crew member. By the way, don't touch her wristband without authorization. Shilyu of the Rain wasn't interested in her. He sat in a corner and continued to wipe the second generation's demon blade with cotton balls. Law was not very interested either. He just looked up slightly. Fishu Ermin glanced at Sugar and laughed. "Trial crew? That is to say, you still need to go through Captain's tuning to get right? It's a wicked hobby, Captain." Ross shot a sharp look at Fishu Ermin, but he was too lazy to pay any more attention to him. At this time, Sugar is also observing newcomers such as Shilyu of the Rain. First of all, Shilyu of the Rain is definitely an absolutely dangerous person. He may be a knife in the face of the other party. As for Fishu Ermin, he looks better, but it doesn't seem to be a person who respects the old and loves the young. Sure enough, she can only be close to Robin on this ship. Now let's talk about what happened next. Ross restrained his expression, and his eyes became calm. Everyone in the room saw Ross's appearance, and they all turned serious. Shilyu of the Rain put down the second generation demon blade. Looking at Ross, Law sat up straight, and the other lazy people all converge. Robin also put Sugar down. This is the Ghost Hand Pirates. Sugar looked on as the lazy people with various chat and jokes became a concentrated entity. Lafitte and other people centered on Ross, and she shrinks her head standing on the side of Robin's legs. The situation among the crew and captain seems to be a partnership, but it's just an appearance, which exists within the scope of Ross's permission. In fact, all life and death depend on Ross alone. The dominance and cohesion of this pirate group are vividly reflected in an instant. We have stored enough food and fresh water on the previous island to last the ship for the upcoming 3 islands. The next island will be Dressrosa. That is to say, after crossing 3 islands, the ship would need to stop at Dressrosa to load supplies and fresh water, and then we sail towards Yonko, 4 Emperors, territory. Ross opens slowly, stating the next route. Him going to Dressrosa also has other means. One is to load fresh water and other supplies, and the other is to try to find heel fruit. If he can't find it, it wouldn't matter and it would not take much of his time. But with surgeon fruit in combination with heel fruit, this ship will become the world's top medical institution, and no one would be able to match the medical capabilities of this ship. After that, crossing Dressrosa, they will sail to the Sea of the Yonko, 4 Emperors. Although New World still has a lot of islands outside the jurisdiction of Yonko, 4 Emperors, those islands are either unsuitable for domination because of their poor environment, or mobile islands like Zo, which are hard to find. And that type of island is even worthless even if it is found. Even if they are attacked by force, the locals will not accept domination, let alone become subordinates of forces. Instead, they will waste their strength in the process of attacking. And so, the seas ruled by Yonko, 4 Emperors, are the most suitable seas to take in the New World, and they are basically divided up by them. Some of these territories are caught in the middle of 2 Yonko, 4 Emperors, and there are even islands in the center of the 3 Yonko, 4 Emperors, which is the fuse of conflict between the Yonkos, 4 Emperors. The conflicts between 4 Emperors are often due to the fact that both sides want to compete for territory. The fight starts with a common crew member to a confrontation between cadres, which eventually evolves into a full-scale war. Naturally, New World is much better now than when the 4 Emperors were first established. Many of these similar islands have been attributed separately between them, unlike the first few years where there was almost a continuous battle and the whole New World was in the midst of war. But that's why Ross, as the 5th ruler of the New World, has a hard time gaining a place corresponding to his status. He is bound to fight with 4 Emperors. In silence, Shilyu of the Rain spoke slowly to Ross and said, "Which of the 4 Emperors are we moving against?" For current Ghost Hand pirates, they have the power to fight against any Yonko, 4 Emperors, but to defeat a Yonko, 4 Emperors, it is not that easy. Every Yonko, 4 Emperors, has established its own status in countless killings and wars, and in addition to Yonko, 4 Emperors, they have powerful subordinates. We are in a somewhat conflict with Kaido, but the guy is strong. Lafitte stood by and spoke. He had investigated Kaido's information and looked at a random passage with numbness on his scalp. Rushed into the Marine headquarters by himself, he is the only one that is singled out by other Yonko, 4 Emperors. His subordinates, the 3 major disasters, are only below him in terms of strength. This is a monstrous power level for any organization, including Marine and the government. Kaido is tough. Ross nodded and acknowledged Lafitte's judgment. The government and Marine have captured Kaido many times, and they have tried countless methods to kill him. They must have tried the method of feeding 2 devil fruits, but Blackbeard can accommodate 2 devil fruits with his special physique, so it is normal for Kaido to ignore the clash between devil fruits. For the 100 Beast Pirates, even if they can defeat the other side, or even kill the 3 disasters, you can't do anything to 100 Beast Kaido, and killing Kaido is even more impossible. Perhaps when the power of distortion is enhanced up to 800 or 900 points, and combined with maximum values armament hockey, Kaido may be killed, but not yet. What about Akagami, red hair? Fishu Ermin squinted his eyes. Lafitte said, Akagami, red hair, seems to be a little easier to deal with, but looking carefully at this guy's information, a large part of it is missing. What do you mean? Shilyu of the Rain frowned. Ross took over Lafitte's words, calmly saying, Akagami, red hair, S intelligence is too secretive, it can't be explored at the moment, and it has a lot to do with the government. As a crew member of Roger, he must have seen Raftel. It is not clear what he is hiding. Arriving at Raftel, it is a place worthy of incurring the jealousy for Shilyu of the Rain, but he also has a connection with world government, which had him alarmed. In this case, only Whitebeard and Bigmom are left. Trafalgar Law speaks quietly. Compared to other Yonko, 4 emperors, Whitebeard is the strongest standing on top of the sea from the great age of pirates. One of the 3 legendary pirates and the one who is called the strongest in the world. Nowadays, even with the passage of time, Whitebeard's reputation has not declined but has penetrated into the heart of countless people. He is feared and awed by countless people. Bigmom is easier to deal with than Whitebeard, Fishu Ermin whispered, saying. A few years ago, I had seen the power of Whitebeard. Even now, there is still a big gap between him and all of us. Lafitte retorted. Whitebeard is getting older, maybe he's not as strong as he once was? No one can sit in that position all the time. Others listened to the words of the two and joined the discussion. Ross quietly listened to the arguments between Lafitte and Fishu Ermin but did not say anything. After a while, he slowly said. There is no need to worry about this. After Dressrosa, we will enter the sea under the jurisdiction of Yonko, 4 emperors. As for who to deal with, we can leave it until then. In fact, what I want to tell you is that out of these 4 pirate groups, we have to overturn one, and I want to let you prepare in advance, nothing more. When they heard Ross, the atmosphere in the room was a little silent. Lafitte crooked laughed and said, if you're ready, you would have already done it. We'll wait until you make a decision, Captain. It doesn't make sense for me to come out of Impel Down and not remove one of the 4 emperors. Shilyu of the Rain smirked and continued to wipe the blade. For the current Ghost Hand pirates, even if they face Yonko, 4 emperors, they will not have any fear. Marines were defeated in front of them, and Yonko, 4 emperors, is the same. Coming out of the hall, Ross walked next to Robin and said, notify Kaku and have them collect the intelligence of the other Yonko pirates and specially Bigmom pirates, and help me find someone else. Currently, the Ghost Hand pirates are strong enough on the surface, but they are still lacking in terms of strength if they want to defeat a Yonko, 4 emperors. They need to add another to combat force. The candidate has been selected by Ross for a long time now and he had even let Kaku and others inquire many things about the other side and he has a lot of understanding with regards to this person. Now, the Ghost Hand pirates had developed to this step and Ross now has a certain confidence in inviting the other party to board the ship. After Robin nodded, she laughed and said, you really miss him very much. Hey, how strange that sentence sounds. Ross glanced at Robin and walked right to his room. He pushed the door open with his right hand. As he entered, he pulled Robin into the room with his left hand. Bang! The door slammed shut. Half a day later, after telling Ross the history of several countries and teaching Ross how to use and write ancient scripts characters, Robin came out of Ross's room and walked towards her room. Ross put on a loose shirt and walked to the outside deck. After defeating Marine, he received 140 talent proficiency points and 1 free talent point. He hasn't used them yet. At this moment, the translucent talent system interface emerges. After looking at the general department and the battle department, Ross fell into thought. Today he has 2 options. One is to continue to improve the power of distortion and body and let his power of distortion move closer to the level of Whitebeard, and the second is to upgrade Kenbenshoku, observation, and armament hockey to maximum value. What Ross is thinking about is whether Kenbenshoku, observation, can achieve the future prediction after reaching the maximum value. Future prediction is a strong assistant to have in a fight, but it is not so strong to become a cheat-like broken ability because it can only see a certain kind of future. Once the choices change, the future will change accordingly, and it is impossible to predict the future after being changed. And this ability also has time constraints and it cannot see the future for too long. Otherwise, the future prediction alone is almost an invincible ability, but Tokikaki and Katakuri are clearly not invincible and they are even weaker than Admiral. Let's try it out. After hesitating for a moment, Ross chose to upgrade the 2 types of hockey. He put 40 proficiency points on the agility enhancement to maximize his sensitivity. Agility enhancement, 420, top level strengthening. Physical enhancement, 500, maximum value. Spirit heart, 0, basic level strengthening. Tenacious, 200, maximum value. Rock, 50, mid-level strengthening. Agility enhancement has increased by 40 points. Ross has improved sharply, and Kenbenshoku's control has become clearer. Then, Ross put 50 proficiency points to the observation hockey. Buzz. In the golden twinkle, observation hockey's proficiency has risen all the way to maximum value. At the same time, Ross also felt that his Kenbenshoku, observation, has been enhanced all the way, its coverage has become wider and wider, and the details that can be perceived have become stronger. In his perception, a little spray is incomparably clear, and everyone seems to move much slower as if time is slowed down. Naturally, this is not a slowdown in time, but a special effect of his keenness and explosive growth of Kenbenshoku, observation. In this state, even Kizaru's movements will be slowed down by many times and can be clearly captured by him, no longer as vague as before. Spirit Heart. Ross was inspired and entered the state of Spirit Heart. In this state, observation Haki was further developed. He stared at the sea in front of him, and time seems to freeze at this moment. Ross, who inspired the observation Haki to the limit, tries to break through the shackles of its surface to see the scene that belongs to the future. But, as Ross Kenbenshoku's observation limit increased, he failed to see a picture of the future. Instead, things were moving more and more slowly, as if the whole world has become stationary. This state, Ross felt something was wrong and tried to get out of this state, but it was difficult to do. It took him some time to get out of this state completely, and when he got out he found out that his back wet with cold sweat. There is a problem with too much sensitivity and perception. If the world becomes too slow, it will feel like the days are passing by when only seconds have passed in real time. Fortunately, Ross's spirit is strong enough to bear it. Future prediction, it really is not so easy to get. Ross once again called out the talent system interface, and at the end of the trunk of the observation Haki, there was another small branch. The name of the branch is Future Prediction. The color of this branch is green, showing that it is ready to be activated. To activate Future Prediction, he needs 2 free talent points. A big trap. The corners of Ross's mouth twitched slightly. He had a hard time in even acquiring 1 free talent point. After much hesitation, he still did not activate it. Activating Distortion Space cost 5 free talent points. The time distortion must be at least 5 points, or even 7 points. He must save free talent points as much as possible. As for Future Prediction, since it is possible to practice the ability and activate it, then he will try to practice and activate it. For the remaining 50 talent proficiency points, Ross did not hesitate, and all of them were placed on Armament Haki. After the golden light flashed, Armament Haki also reached the maximum value. Firearms Shooting. 50 Close Combat Fighting, 100. Distortion Fruit. 700 Soru of Marines Rokushiki, 0. Kami-e, Paper Drawing, by Marines Rokushiki, 0. Marines Rokushiki's Geppo, Moonwalk, 0. Observation Haki. 200, Maximum Value, Armament Haki, 200, Maximum Value. Haoshoku Haki. 0. After Armament Haki reached maximum value, like Kenbenshoku, Observation, it also has a small branch with the name marked, True Damage. Activating it also requires 2 free talent points. True Damage, what is this? An attack that can be blocked? No, it should be harm that will not be immune. There was a flash of thought in Ross's eyes. In the War of the Best, Marco received many laser attacks from Kizaru and all of his wounds would recover in a flash. Some of Kizaru's attacks must contain Haki, but none of them were effective. But, Garp punched Marco and Marco was unable to offset that damage with his ability. Armament Haki can attack a Logia user, but the damage is still partially offset by the elementalization. Armament Haki could also hurt Luffy's rubber body, but most of the impact will be offset by the properties of rubber. The limit of Kenbenshoku, Observation, is Future Prediction. The limit of Armament Haki may be this ability. No matter what ability, there is no concept of offset damage. Naturally, it's just a guess on Ross's part, and he's not sure if it's true, because he doesn't have it yet and doesn't plan on using his free talent points to activate it. I don't know how strong I am today. How am I compared to Kaido? Ross shook his fist and felt the power in his body as his heart rose and fell like an ocean. Dressrosa. After nearly half destroyed by the war, the whole country has taken on a new look after half a year of reconstruction. As King Riku chose to rebuild the palace at last and live on the ruined king's high ground, the reconstruction of the country was very fast. It's completely rebuilt. Walking beside Ross, Robin looked at Dressrosa's environment and smiled. She could see the reconstruction of the country destroyed by the war. Naturally, there was some happiness in her heart. Lafitte and others were sent by Ross to Greenbit to look for Heal fruit. Haruden and others were responsible for loading food and fresh water on board. As for Robin and Sugar, they were taken by Ross. Sugar silently followed Robin. It was a return trip for her, but nothing like it had ever been. As a special member of the Don Quixote family, She had always been hidden away in the underground factory, rarely making it to the surface. That is, Ghost Hand Ross and Nico Robin. The people who walked in the street, noticing Ross and Robin, were first surprised, then they showed different expressions. Some were slightly timid, while others were happy. For them, Ross saved the country. No matter how much the world government tries to mask the truth and smeared Ross's reputation around the world, on this island they can't. Because everything happened under the eyes of people, it was clearly seen by everyone. Sugar walks by with her head down. She doesn't want to be recognized. There were too many people who got turned into toys by her. There must be a lot of them on this street. She was wondering what she would do if someone cursed her or tried to avenge her death. Wearing the wristband, she couldn't do anything. However, walking beside Ross and Robin, she was gradually shocked to find that no one around could see her and they only saw Ross and Robin. Ross strolled down the street and said with a mild look on his face, "You are my crew after all. I can't let you get yelled at all the way." Ross never thought of himself as a messiah or as a savior of this country. He only wanted to deal with Doflamingo, and he couldn't think of himself that way. Not biased towards justice, nor inclined towards evil, occupying eternal neutrality in chaos. For him, his crew will always come first no matter what. Walking. There was a sudden commotion from the crowd, and the royal guard led the way in the rear, escorting the crowned King Riku and others. And King Riku and others haven't arrived yet, and a little pink-haired girl arrived in front of him. "Please, are you Mr. Ross?" asked the little pink girl, with big, lovely eyes, addressing Ross with a childish voice. It was Princess Rebecca of Dressrosa, King Riku's granddaughter. Ross looks down at Rebecca, who is only 10 years old now, and some of his memories come out and he can't help smiling. Robin on one side became quite fond of Rebecca, and said, "If there is no other person with the same name here, then it should be our captain." "Thank you very much." Rebecca bit her lip and bowed towards Ross, thanking him with a childish and pure voice. If it weren't for Ross, she wouldn't know that the one-legged toy soldier protecting her was her father Kairos. "You know, a princess shouldn't bow to others." Ross faintly smiled. It doesn't matter if you're a pirate or a princess. In his opinion, this kind of girl is a cute creature, different from the ordinary people around her. It was at this time that King Riku's voice came from behind. "No, Rebecca should thank you." Surrounded by soldiers, King Riku came through the crowd. As the king of the land and an elderly man, his face and manner were calm and unrevealing. He looked at Ross with the most solemn expression, and said, "Allow me to express to you, on behalf of all the people of Dressrosa, our utmost gratitude. Many years ago, he was framed by Doflamingo, stripped of his status as king, and reduced to a sinner in Dressrosa, all of which seems like hell to him as a king. But more than half a year ago, Ross came to Dressrosa, breaking the light of the surface and revealing all the darkness to the public, and fought and defeated the devil so that the country can enjoy the sunshine again, which is a great grace towards him and the people of Dressrosa. Your Majesty." All the people nearby were surprised to see King Riku slowly bowing to Ross. A guard tried to stop him, but his outstretched hand stopped in midair. However, King Riku wasn't able to bow before he was stopped. "Please, King Riku, we're pirates." Robin stops King Riku from saluting and speaks softly to King Riku. After the Dressrosa incident, it became a place where the world's attention converged. Not only did the Revolutionary Army secretly protect it, but also all the major forces were secretly staring at it. The world government could not easily impose Buster Call on it to destroy the country. To do so would be to create a bigger mess than the Dressrosa incident. But, if King Riku bowed to a pirate, it would give the world government a chance to make a great fuss about Dressrosa, even if they couldn't do anything to it. Nico Robin, King Riku was stopped and turned to look at Robin and became a little silent. Ross slowly opened his mouth and distorted his voice and said King Riku so only he could hear. "This is not a place to talk. It just so happens that I want to talk to you. I don't know if your palace is rebuilt." With that, Ross took Sugar's little hand and walked through the crowd on one side with Robin, disappearing in an instant. King's Plateau. Dressrosa's palace was finally being built and is still under reconstruction. The temporary palace is on the former King's Plateau, where King Riku and other royal families live. Robin and Ross, standing in the garden of the King's Plateau, looking out at the view of the garden. If word got out about the bow you took towards a pirate, there'd be a lot of fuss because you are still part of the world government. World government, King Riku sighed. After all this, how can I trust the world government again? In fact, he wanted to quit the world government, but the real royal family in charge of Dressrosa was the Don Quixote family 800 years ago, and it was only when the Don Quixote family moved to the Holy Land Marijoy that King Riku's ancestors took over the throne. Therefore, Dressrosa is one of the original Orthodox countries to join the world government. Even if he is the king, he has no right to withdraw from the world government. Robin sighed. However, she had a clear understanding of Dressrosa's history before and after and understood King Riku's situation. No matter how dissatisfied he was with the world government, he could do nothing. Ross looked at the sunflower garden in King's Plateau and said, "If there is a huge regime that can oppose the world government, what choice will you make, King Riku?" Well, King Riku was startled. As one of the 5 emperors, it is obviously not possible for Ross to say such unreasonable words, but for there to be a regime that can opposite the world government, which has not been opposed in 800 years. Even the 4 emperors wouldn't oppose the regime of the world government. The only reason that the world government didn't want to fight them is that it would cause too much impact and loss, and they had just let the Yonko, 4 emperors, let go. Otherwise, not a single one of Yonko, 4 emperors, has the power to fight against the government and win. To establish a regime that is opposed to the government, it is not enough to plant flags on some islands. In addition to having enough power to contend with the government, countries far more than the islands in the New World should choose to join. Otherwise, it's just a joke. This is a much more difficult goal to achieve than becoming a pirate king. Even if Ross is already one of the 5 emperors, it is almost impossible for him to establish a faction that opposes the government even with King Riku's help. If there is a new government that is fair and just, I am willing to join. King Riku slowly opened his mouth. There was no one here but himself and Ross and Robin, so he didn't mind saying something that would turn the world government against him. Ross's faintly smiled. This is the beginning, and this is the first country that had joined him, although there is still a long journey ahead. Defeating all Yonko, 4 emperors. Going to the apex of Yonko, 4 emperors. Become the pirate king, and even this is not enough. He must have at least 3 forces powerful enough to rival Yonko, 4 emperors, pirates. Only then would he have the capital to fight against the world government. On the site, even if all the sites of the Yonko, 4 emperors, pirates are brought together and the whole new world is included, it will barely meet the regime standard. Naturally, all of these are goals that are too far away right now. The biggest problem he's facing now is Yonko, 4 emperors. How to beat Yonko, 4 emperors, and take their place is what Ross is currently considering. It is extremely ridiculous for the emperor to be empty and powerful without any territory. In the eyes of countless forces in the whole sea, including King Riku standing here, they all know very well that the ghost hand pirates will inevitably collide with other Yonko, 4 emperors. Will it be a reshuffle, or splitting the sphere of influence into 5 pieces, or will there eventually be someone annihilated, restoring the former Yonko, 4 emperors, pattern? No one knows. The only thing to know for sure is that the sea will never settle down. In the coming battle of the 5 sovereigns, the entire new world will be affected, and the second half of the Grand Line may become a battlefield. While Ross was enjoying the scenery with Robin in the garden on King's Plateau, a figure appeared in front of him in a dark arc. The figure was wearing a high-top ceremonial hat and holding a mahogany cane. He was Lafitte. Captain Ross. Lafitte bowed slightly to Ross, holding a mahogany stick in one hand. His other hand turned into the void and a fine devil fruit appeared in his hand. The fruit you were looking for. A few people went to Grinbit to find heel fruit, and the results were that it was easier to find than they had thought. They first encountered Dwarves' race, and the Dwarves' race didn't even need hypnosis. Lafitte literally said a few words which included Ross's name, and the Dwarves' race began to launch a full-scale invasion on their own island to help Lafitte find the devil fruit. Under a large-scale search, Grinbit was quickly turned over and they eventually found the heel fruit hidden in vines in a hole. Well, it went better than I thought. Ross smiled as he took the delicate-looking heel fruit from Lafitte. Surgeon Fruit's medical strength does not need to be mentioned. Heel fruit being able to cure all internal injuries is not just empty talk. Its ultimate ability can even restore all wounds. Even if the internal organs are damaged or even missing, under the ability of heel fruit, they can be restored. The only drawback is that the ultimate ability has to be used at the cost of one's life. Lucky day we're having today. Robin stood by and looked at the exquisite heel fruit with a smile. Now they have the heel fruit with them, and there is also the surgeon fruit. As long as they are not fatally injured and die on spot, there is a cure for almost everything. It is 2-layered insurance. This is very good. And with our next step is to fight a Yonko, 4 emperors. It is also an early preparation. Ross slowly opened his mouth, took a closer look at Heal Fruit, put it in his pocket, and motioned for Lafitte to return to the ship. Lafitte lifted up his ceremonial hat, smiled and flashed, disappearing from the King's Plateau and headed for the coast. Let's go. Ross also walked forward, and he reached out to Void. Buzz. The space in front of him is suddenly folded and distorted, forming a distortion channel. Ross takes Sugar by the waist with one hand and La Bin with the other, and steps forward. With this step, the 3 figures suddenly crossed hundreds of meters from the King's Plateau and appeared on a roof in Dressrosa. The limit of space that Ross can fold currently is about 1 kilometer, which means he can fold space in any direction he chooses and get away. Whiz. Whiz. He can also use this ability several times in a row, just like flash steps. When the final step falls, on a ship anchored on the shore, Void suddenly bends and Ross is seen taking 1 step and landing on the deck. Captain. Rode, who had been watching the ship, became alarmed at the strange movement, but seeing that it was Ross, he dropped his guard down. Ross nodded towards Rode and put down Sugar before asking Rode, "Where is Girth?" "Loading freshwater and fish over there." Rode pointed to the side of the ship. For the Heal Fruit, the most suitable user is naturally Girth. As a giant, she is large enough and has a strong vitality. Her life expectancy is far longer than the average human. Girth can heal other giants using the Heal Fruit, and she may be the only one who can stand the consumption to heal the other giants. For the time being, treating ordinary humans such as Lafitte and others, the effect is likely to increase greatly, and the consumption may be reduced by several times. So that even with using the ultimate ability, life expectancy will only be reduced by a little bit. After Ross nodded, he headed in the direction pointed by Rode. The giants are bigger, so they are easy to find, and Ross was able to see her at a glance. Whiz. As he stepped down, the whole man flashed onto Girth's shoulder. Captain. Girth did a double take, turned her head and looked over her shoulder and found Ross sitting there with a smile on his face. Ross stood on her shoulder and took out the Heal Fruit and put it at her red lips. Heal Fruit was like millet and it fell into Girth's mouth. What? Although the devil fruit is tiny compared to her size, but like a human eating a grain of sand, it still doesn't taste good. Girth felt bitter in her mouth and couldn't help but say, "Captain, what did you throw?" "Devil fruit." Ross flew up and came to the front of Girth, responding to her. Girth had guessed the devil fruit possibility. Ross couldn't have shot anything else in her mouth. After the bitterness passed, she noticed a force coming out of her body. It was a very gentle force that flowed to every part of her body, and she felt the warm comfort of that area. It flowed to her feet and wrists, and all the small bruises and her tiredness vanished. Girth put down the bucket in surprise and looked at her hands. If none of her fellow giants had devil fruit, then she also wouldn't want one, but now that her fellow giants had eaten the devil fruit, she also had a very strong desire for devil fruit, because everyone else was much more powerful than she was. Heal Fruit. You need to figure out the specific properties and effects of this devil fruit by yourself. Just know that the scope of this fruit is not limited to treatment, but also eliminate fatigue, supplement stamina, and various other extraordinary effects. Ross looked at Girth and smiled. Although Heal Fruit is not a battle-oriented devil fruit, its role is unquestionable in a fight. Imagine Aokiji and Akainu fighting for 10 days and 10 nights in order to compete for the position of the fleet admiral. Finally, Akainu was slightly better. In this process, if Aokiji received a dandelion that can restore some of his stamina and heal his injuries, the results of the entire battle will be directly reversed. You have devil fruit now, Girth. Haruden came to the ship with a large barrel and smiled at Girth. They were joined by Goldberg and others. The devil fruit users are the majority population of this ship. Girth had never had the devil fruit ability, and now she had also got it. This is the end. The giant core finally has 5 devil fruit users giants. You carry on, and let Girth think about her own strength. Ross spoke to Haruden and the others, and flew to the ship. When he came to the ship's deck, Shilyu of the Rain seemed to have just returned. Did you give it to her? Heal Fruit. He had a cigar in his mouth and looked at Girth's direction. His eyelids hang down and said, "This is fine." When he heard Shilyu of the Rain, Ross wondered, "What's wrong? Did you wanted the Heal Fruit?" There are very few non-devil fruit users on board today, and Shilyu of the Rain is one of them. but Shiryu of the Rain is a character who has nothing to do with healing. It's nothing. Shiryu of the Rain shook his head and looked faintly. I was just thinking about the situation when I met the enemy. Would it be more interesting to cure him after attacking him, and cure him again before killing him with one blow? Ross glanced at Shiryu of the Rain with a blank expression and turned toward his cabin. Not even going to ask. Let's just forget that I heard that. Future prediction. In the ship's practice room, Ross holds a piece of sea stone in each hand to make himself weak and to suppress the power of distortion and avoids the bullets being fired around him. To stimulate observation hockey to the limit alone is not to touch the ability of future prediction, but it is to plunge one's consciousness into an infinite extension of time. To practice future prediction, a more specific approach is needed. Bang! 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 Robin conjured up a dozen arms, each holding a handgun, and she kept firing them at Ross. Your body becomes weak while holding the sea stones, so it's not easy to avoid a bullet even if your kenbenshoku, observation, is fully aroused. From time to time, it will be hit by the bullets. However, with Ross's current physical strength, the bullet will only leave a simple white mark on him even without him using the armament hockey to defend himself. If it wasn't clear how strong Ross was and that the regular bullets were at best toys to him, then Robin wouldn't have accompanied him to this dangerous training. Bang! Bang! Robin shot randomly with so many guns, and it became even more difficult for Ross to predict the paths of the bullets even with his kenbenshoku, observation, and Ross had to keep the spirit heart state active all the time to avoid the bullets. It's hard to avoid all bullets as his body got more and more bruised. It is difficult to avoid all bullets even with using kenbenshoku, observation, to perceive their paths. In this state, if he wants to avoid all bullets perfectly, he must have the ability of future prediction, to see the flight trajectory of all bullets in advance and to stand in the position that avoids all the bullets in advance or put himself in a position that can pass through the bullet net. Poof bursts. Poof bursts. In a series of illusion, Ross's forehead soaked with sweat, and he was ultimate hit by 2 bullets in his chest and stomach and could no longer hold the 2 sea stones. The 2 sea stones fell to the ground, and Ross sat on the ground and gasped. All right. Robin came over and looked at Ross. She saw a slight white dot on his chest and stomach, and her eyes flashed slightly. Although Ross's stamina is mostly drained, but under the strong resilience brought by the tenacious talent maximum value, the white point that was shot by the bullet disappeared in a few seconds. It's all right. Seems to have got the hang of it. Ross calmed his breath and slowly opened his eyes with a thoughtful look in them, and his mind was constantly reminiscing about the practice process. This practice is still slightly dangerous. For example, if he is hit in the eyes, the problem will be very big. However, with Ross's current resilience and his recovery speed, even if his eyeballs are hurt, they can be recovered without a problem. Don't ask me to do this again. Robin looked at Ross and opened her mouth with a deadpan expression. Even though she knew that Ross would not be hurt, she still felt uncomfortable shooting guns at him. Ross recovered back from his thoughts and saw Robin's appearance. He couldn't help but raise his lips and said, "How can I quit halfway, and you promised that you would help me train? You didn't say it was this kind of training." Robin stared at Ross with a blank expression. Ross gathered the middle finger and the first finger and made a gun posture with his hand. He moved the handmade gun towards Robin and said, "You can't go back on your promise. Come, let's continue. If you don't shoot me, I will shoot you." Robin stood up and glanced at Ross before walking out of the training room, ignoring Ross's threat. After resting for a few hours, Robin came back to help Ross with his kenbenshoku, observation, hockey training. The ship has already left the Dressrosa at this time, heading deeper into the New World, and just after Ross completed another workout session and feels that he is closer to activating the future prediction ability, the intelligence from Kaku and others was delivered. The beast pirates made a big move. In the bathroom, Ross wiped the water off his face with a towel, his eyes flashing as he listened to the news from Robin nearby. The details? We can't find out. We only know that the beast pirates have mobilized their forces and left the island they were anchored upon. We can't find out what their target and purpose is. Robin said slowly. No one dares to follow the ships of a Yonko, 4 Emperors, pirate group. It is possible to detect that the Yonko, 4 Emperors, pirates has gathered all of their combat forces and left the center of their territory, which is already enough to alarm the intelligence of all parties. He could be coming against us. Ross thought for a moment and made a judgment. Kaido might not have paid attention if Ross had been weak enough to challenge the beast pirates, but now that he has been proclaimed as the 5th Emperor of the Sea, it's a different story for Kaido. What should we do? Should we bypass the established route? Robin came over and put the bathrobe on Ross's body and asked. Their originally proposed route is very close to the territory of the Bigmom pirates, and it is also very close to one of the territories of the Beast Pirates. Their destination is an island on the border of the two sides. Now that the Beast Pirates party is on the move, if they want to avoid them, they have to bypass their original route and take the route between the territories of Whitebeard and Akagami. Red Hair. So Kaido will have to run into either Akagami, Red Hair, or Whitebeard's territory. No, stay on course. Ross pulled on his bathrobe and stepped out of the bathroom. He straightened his hair and said with a glint in his eye, "Since Kaido wants to fight, let's fight." Since confrontation with other Yonko, 4 emperors, is only a matter of time, it is better to start now. If he can defeat the Beast Pirates, then it would be better. If he can't beat him, Ross doesn't think Kaido can do the same either. The Ghost Hand Pirates' combat power is now fully formed. They are strong enough to rival any pirate group. There is no possibility of being a one-sided fight and being crushed and killed. Then we are ready for war, Robin said faintly. Currently, she is not the scared little girl who escaped from O'Hara's and Devil Child that has been hiding under the pursuit of Marine. She has experienced many battles many times, and she has trained with Ross many times too. Even if she doesn't like to fight, she can now utilize the hardened armament hockey. She is also proficient in observation hockey, and she has developed her flower fruit. Hana no Mi. And she can now create doppelgangers with her powers. Her mentality and strength have been promoted by a lot since the time when they all got chased by Aokiji and had to flee. Let everyone know, Ross said quietly. Robin nodded and exited the room and passed the message to the rest of the Ghost Hand Pirates. 100 Beast Kaido? Shiryu of the Rain pulled out the 2nd-generation Ghost Blade and looked at the sharp blade, his face showing a calm and heart-wrenching smile. The Beast Pirates, isn't it? Fishu Erman sighed as another headache came to him. He sighed again and said, "Since it's a fight they want, then a fight they will get." Ho, 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 the world is going to be shocked again. Lafitte wiped his black ceremonial hat and made a creepy laugh. Kaido. I finally got to this step. Trafalgar Law put the demon blade on his shoulders, his eyes flashing with sharpness. I heard that the Beast Pirates are very strong. The Giant of the Sand, Road said slowly. Haruden, with a calm face, clenched his fist in front of him and said, "Any enemy can be beaten in front of the Giant's Corps. Let's fight for the glory of Elfbuff and Captain." Everyone in the Giant Corps is filled with fighting spirit. As pure warriors, there is absolutely no fear in their hearts. Even if the other party is the Beast Pirates, it is the same. Ghost Hand Pirates. All staff, prepare for war. World Government. The highest level office. Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, are either sitting or standing. Their expressions are full of seriousness. They just received an intelligence report from New World about the movements of the Beast Pirates. Kaido is acting. Should we set out a Marine Admiral? The Ghost Hand Pirates have already penetrated deep into the New World, and deploying an admiral is too big of a move and may cause unnecessary trouble. The 5 people are 1 person and 1 sentence. The Yonko, 4 emperors, who regards New World as their own territory, does not allow powerhouses at the level of Marine Admirals to enter their territorial waters at random. This is tantamount to infringing on their faces. If the Ghost Hand Pirates fights with the Beast Pirates, other Yonko, 4 emperors, may not intervene, but if a Marine Admiral is dispatched, other Yonko, 4 emperors, will definitely interfere. In my opinion, it is better to let CP0 secretly follow them. Not a bad idea. Seconded. Within the New World, it is almost impossible to send more Marine Admiral-level forces to fight a war with Yonko, 4 emperors, pirates, as the consequences would be extremely serious. Moreover, the Ghost Hand Pirates are in their heyday. It would be difficult for even 3 Marine Admiral classes combat power to knock them down, so it is not meaningful to send more people. And if the CP0 secretly travels and follow them, and once the Ghost Hand Pirates and the Beast Pirates lose people on both sides, it would be a great opportunity to fish in troubled water. Assassination. They will kill. These are the things that CP0 is best at. Under the command of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, CP0 Chief led the elite assassins of CP0 and quickly set off from the Holy Land Marijoy. This time, there was no big fanfare and they all dressed up and went to the New World. At the same time, 100 Beast Kaido's action news is also rapidly spread in the underground world and falls into the ears of countless forces. Although Yonko, 4 emperors, pirates can't compete with the government, they are the emperor of the new world. Once they act, it will trigger a huge moment. Kaido is acting. It's not a separate action. This time he brought his entire firepower. Is he going to attack someone? Looks like the Emperor War is starting. Someone, speaking slowly and with a deep eye, had suspected Kaido might be going after the Ghost Hand Pirates. Emperor War. This was almost always happening in the era when Yonko, 4 emperors, pirates were first formed, but now the time is the Great Age of Pirates, 17th year. This type of war hasn't happened in a long time. The Ghost Hand Pirates appeared and finally broke the balance of the New World, which let the entire New World enter the chaotic pattern again. Kaido is moving. In the Akagami, red hair, territory, Shanks holds a sword and sits on a reef on the shore. Lucky Roo took a bite of meat and said, "Do you want to act, boss?" No, Akagami, red hair, shook his head and said with a deep light in his eyes, "Let them fight." The presence of Ghost Hand Pirates has broken down the balance. This war is bound to break out. It is inevitable. This is the wave of the times and cannot be stopped. Beckman stood on the shore and looked at the sea where the waves were rising. He took a cigarette and said, "The sea, which has been calm for several years, is about to swell again." Whitebeard territory. Kaido has gone in search of a ghost. After all, he lost his man and was provoked by Ghost Hand Ross. It is quite normal for him to move against them, Marco said to Jozu, then turned to look at Whitebeard, saying, "Father, who do you think will win?" Whitebeard folded his hands on his chest and sat on the deck of Moby Dick. He said, "Gulalala, the Ghost Hand boy hasn't come to fight me yet," and yet Kaido moved. When he heard Whitebeard, Marco couldn't help but smile. He said, "The last time someone provoked you was 3 years ago, and in the end, he was punched out of the island by you. But that Kaido is strong. He isn't like some washed-out marine. The Ghost Hand Pirates has encountered a hard scorpion this time." Big MOM territory. Kaido, Yonko, 4 emperors, BIGMOM is sitting in the whole cake island, stuffing a snack into her mouth and saying, "Well, it seems that he was really provoked by that Ghost Hand boy." When it comes to the Ghost Hand Pirates, BIGMOM's expression is not a happy one. The Toto land she built to accommodates countless species in the world, but there is no giant here. She always wanted to take the giants under her control, but because of her old past, the relationship between the giants and her was bad. And the character of the giants is rather unyielding, and even if she is strong, it is impossible for them to yield to her. They would rather die first. Now, on Ross's ship, there are 5 giants which formed a giant corps, and they have all become devil fruit users, which makes her extremely unhappy. The power that she wants with her whole heart, and she did not get it. Instead, it is thrown into the bosom of others and became the battle force of others. Even if the Kaido guy doesn't do it, I will kill that ghost boy sooner or later. To encroach on the power that I want, I will never allow it, BIGMOM said, and there was a hint of madness in her eyes. Katakuri, the head of the 4 sweet commanders, stood beside BIGMOM, his eyes open and indifferent. "No need to be so angry, mother. They may not be able to survive in Kaido's hands." That is also true. Big Mom's expression slowly calmed down and she put a piece of bread into her mouth. The ordinary people are still in the dark, but the major forces have already received the news and the entire new world is showing a brewing undercurrent. After 7 days, Ross and others finally arrived at their destination island. Duca Island. In the ruins of Duca Island, which was originally a bustling kingdom and was later destroyed in the war. The civilization had disappeared and it looked like this belongs to ancient times. It now belongs to some barbarians. The barbarians' combat power is very strong, but because their number is small and their behavior is too brutal, plus with the many powerful beasts on the island, so the island is not favored by Yonko, 4 emperors. And this became the island located outside the territory of Yonko, 4 emperors. If we go further, we will enter the Toto Land Sea area and the 100 Beast Sea area. We will rest here today. Ross walked down from the ship and looked at the island, which was covered by the forest, and he could see a lot of remains covered by tree vines. From here on, it is the territory of Yonko, 4 emperors, pirates. Kaido is now in motion, but he doesn't know where he is, so Ross has to prepare for the war every step of the way. There seems to have a long history on this island. Robin boarded the island and headed towards a vine-covered area in the forest and pulled a stone with the words carved from the vines and carefully observed it. Well, there may be a poneglyph here. Ross followed her and said to Lafitte and others at the rear. Don't be too dispersed, try to be on the area along the coast. If someone from the Beast Pirates appears, let me know immediately. Yes, Captain. Lafitte echoed. An ancient civilization destroyed by war. Robin walked through the forest, plucking the vines from time to see the remains of the pieces buried in the mud, each with a long history, at least hundreds of years ago. What she wanted to see most is the poneglyph stone, but this kind of thing is not so easy to find. At the least, she had to explore this island, and it may even be buried in underground. Roar. In the middle of the search, a sudden roar came from the bushes, and a great silverback ape sprang out of the bushes and charged at her with a roar. Robin crossed her arms and utilized armament hockey. Hardened, but she was still pushed back by the huge impact force and only managed to stop after 5 or 6 steps. It is indeed a dangerous place. As Ross stands to one side, he realizes that the silverback ape is still trying to deliver a blow to Robin, and he delivers one with the power of distortion. Bang! Perceiving the danger, the silverback ape hurled a huge fist at Ross with a roar. 2 disproportionate fists collided with each other, and the silverback ape was hit with such force that its massive body flew backward, breaking 3 thick trees in a row before it came to a halt. It vomited blood from its mouth, and its huge eyes revealed humanized fear. The ape fled into the depths of the forest and disappeared. Not dead. Ross took back his fist and surprise flashed in his eyes. He didn't use all his strength just now, but he still used about 1/3 of his power. With his current strength, even 1/3 of his power is extremely terrible, and even with that, the giant ape survived. There are many incomprehensible creatures in this world. For example, Luffy needs to unleash Gear 4th to defeat the so-called giant beast in his 2 years of practice. It seems that this is just a similar existence. No wonder that Yonko, 4 emperors, pirates are not interested in this island. Robin withdrew her gaze. She was not afraid of any danger in Ross's company, but the great silverback ape was a little more powerful. Naturally. Today, Ross is sitting in one of the top positions of the sea in terms of power. If not the strongest, then he certainly is almost there, so some giant beasts are nothing to him. The two continued to move deeper into the forest. In the continuous inspection of the relics, Robin gradually found some clues, and after checking some temporary carved words, her eyes glistened. This island was destroyed by the world government. Buster Call? A few hundred years ago? Ross asked as he walked beside Robin. Robin shook her head and said, there should be no Buster Call at that time, but it should also be some sort of order to destroy the island. Look at these traces. The time of destruction should be about 600 years ago. Ross calmly said, this is not the first time that we have seen the evidence of world government destroying the island to cover up their secrets. Robin didn't speak. The situation of this island reminded her of her hometown, O'Hara. She was not in a good mood and continued to walk towards the jungle in silence. Going forward, Ross perceived something and his eyes flashing slightly, saying, someone, no, it should be the so-called barbarian. In front. In the depths of the jungle, they saw a group of people wearing rough linen cloths around their waist with naked upper bodies were besieging a huge tiger with a body size of 7 or 8 meters. The tiger was so powerful that it could tear a tree half a meter in diameter with one stroke, but it was still beaten by the barbarians, covered in blood and routed. Obviously, barbarians who can survive on this dangerous island are also equipped with certain strength. Yuka. In the midst of the siege, one of the great savages gave a great roar, and with the terrible force of his stone spear, he sprang to his feet and fell upon the tiger's head, piercing it. The tiger gave a roar and fell to the ground, struggling for a few moments before becoming motionless. Armament hockey. Ross and Robin appeared on the treetops not far away, and their eyes glanced toward them. Similar to the Sky Island, whose people are naturally proficient in observation hockey, the barbarians on this island seem to be naturally proficient in armament hockey, which is also the source of their strength, otherwise they wouldn't be able to compete with those beasts. Yee. And just as the savages were beginning to gather up their prey, Ross gave a cry of surprise at what he saw. In one of the savages' shabby knapsacks, a strange fruit, all blue, with a strange pattern. Devil fruit. It was only one look and Ross was 90% sure that it was a devil fruit. Originally Ross was not interested in these barbarians, but they got a devil fruit out of nowhere, which made him narrow his eyes a little. Blue devil fruit. There was a flicker of surprise in Robin's eye. She used her ability to make a pair of eyes at close range, and carefully observed the devil fruit, thinking a little. It looks a bit like Logia's ice fruit, but that's Aokiji's ability, and it looks like Paramisha, it might be the cold fruit. Cold fruit? Ross had a thoughtful look in his eyes. Oven. The fourth son of the Bigmom pirates has the fruit ability called hot fruit, which is Paramisha, using which he can make himself hot and can exert the power of low-class magma. Not surprisingly, this cold fruit should also be a low-end version of ice fruit, a Paramisha that gives your body a very cold temperature. The ability of this fruit is not weak. After thinking a little, Ross made a decision to take it. The hot fruit can heat the sea and make the seawater boil. The cold fruit must also have the power to freeze the sea. Although it is difficult to compare with Aokiji's ice fruit, its development limit is not necessarily weak. Moreover, the power of the frozen sea is not something weak in this world. Almost as soon as Ross and Robin were observing the devil fruit, the barbarian who seemed to be the leader, suddenly raised his head, showing a vigilant expression. After bellowing a few confusing phrases, he turned towards the direction of Ross and Robin and looked towards their position. Although Ross had used light distortion and sound distortion to be invisible, the other party still seemed to find them out. It seems that they can also use observation hockey. Ross's face remained unchanged. The fact that they had been secretly observing it for so long means that this group of savages had very average knowledge of Kenbanshoku hockey. It's quite different from their armament hockey. At the call of the barbarian's leader, the others took up their arms and looked warily in the direction of Ross and Robin, all with fierce expressions. At this time, Ross also dissipated the light distortion and sound distortion and appeared in front of them. Whiz! He jumped down from the treetop and calmly looked at the many barbarians in front of him. He points to the cold fruit in one of the simple bags, saying, "Give it to me, in exchange for 2 of these, pray." Ross made a few simple gestures. However, many barbarians did not pay attention to him but instead set their sights on Robin, who was next to him. Woman? They spit out very strange words. Ross turned to look at Robin and said, "Do you understand them?" "It's probably not something very friendly." Robin slightly narrowed her eyes. For the simple language used by the barbarians, she just happened to understand a little bit. It seems that women are very important to them and they look as if they are going to rob me. After roughly judging the meaning of the other party while watching their excited faces and the movement of encircled, Robin translated it to Ross. Ross's eyes dropped and his expressions become cold. He looks back at the barbarians who are surrounding them. He has no interest in any more deals. He said, "Tell them, they must die after they angered God." Robin. She looked and didn't talk. Whiz. At this time, the barbarians moved and they threw the spears in their hands towards Ross, trying to kill Ross directly and then bring Robin back to the horde. Almost as soon as they threw the spear, Ross put his hand forward. Buzz. The power of distortion swayed and the spears wrapped in armament hockey and even in armament. Hardening slowed down in the air as if they had fallen into the mud. After a difficult push, they completely solidified in the air. Seeing this scene, many barbarians showed surprised expressions and shouted at each other in incomprehensible words, as if to warn them. Annihilation. Ross's eyes were dull as his palms darts forward and pressed down in void. Bang! The power of distortion broke out, letting the surrounding void area appear in the form of distortion. Many barbarians were suddenly shrouded in it like cockroaches and fell down. At the same time, Ross grabbed the blue devil fruit with his left hand and took it back. Oh! A group of barbarians waved their weapons and madly inspired the armament hockey, but in the face of Ross's power, they could only stand for a second and all of them collapsed. The power of distortion fell down and killed everyone in the blink of an eye. At the same time, the area around the barbarians collapsed in the area of tens of meters. Robin looked at the scene calmly, without any expression of sympathy. From the words and actions of the barbarian just now, she can roughly think of what kind of end will a civilian ship or a merchant ship will get after crashing in this island. Moreover, the strength of these barbarians is extraordinary and their strength is similar to the pirates with the bounty of 100 million berries, and even then those pirates may have the same ending as civilians in the hands of these barbarians. This is the depth of the new world. Compared to here, the first half of the Grand Line is paradise. Can you confirm that this is indeed the cold fruit? Ross observed the blue devil fruit in his hand and handed it to Robin. Robin took over and recalled the devil fruit book she had seen in her childhood. Her memory was impeccable and she can recall everything she had once read. The impression is not very deep, but there should be no other similar fruits. If it's not the paramecia cold fruit, it should be some other cold property fruit in paramecia indexes like cold chill or cold weather fruit. It can make cold and or ice, but it's not very likely. The cold fruit has a similar pattern. He heard Robin's words. Ross nodded. The cold fruit also has the power of the freeze the sea. However, in his opinion, if the cold fruit is developed well, it may not be much worse than the ice fruit, lowering its own temperature and affecting the outside world. -50 degrees, -100 degree, absolute zero. The power of each magnitude is totally different. If it can reach absolute zero, it is equal to the ultimate power of cold, and ice fruit may not be able to compete with it. Let's go. Harvesting a valuable devil fruit, Ross is in a good mood. But just as Ross put the cold fruit in his pocket, Robin suddenly made a noise and walked over to the area that was collapsed by Ross and looked down. Underneath it, it was an ancient relic buried in the depths of the underground. Along with the huge potholes that Ross created, a huge square stone could be seen in the dimly light, and Ross and Robin had guessed its nature at a single glance. Poneglyph stone. Although Robin speculated that there might be a poneglyph stone tablet on this island, if it didn't happen to collapse here, it would not be found until the whole island was turned over. This is a bit unexpected. With a small laugh, Ross reaches down to the underground ruins, and the light thrashes around with light distortion that makes the whole underground area seem as bright as day. Robin jumped into the ruins and walked over to the poneglyph stone and carefully studied it, and Ross stood by and acted as a light bulb. I do not know how long it has been. Robin jumped up from the ruins and sighed. The poneglyph tablet was recorded with the glory of the Duca kingdom of the Duca Island, but 600 years ago, the kingdom of Duca was destroyed. The ruins are all that remains that are preserved to this day. Ross doesn't know how much history was buried in the underground, as Robin's mood was slightly lower. Ross stretched out his fingers and gently pushed a strand of hair in front of her forehead. The times are moving forward. There are always people and countries that become history, but as long as you think, sooner or later you will find all the history you want to know. Robin nodded lightly. The two passed through the jungle and returned to the ship. After a day of rest, Ross once again accompanied Robin into the jungle to find more ruins of Duke Island. After a total of 3 days of exploration, the entire island was explored almost once, and they came face to face several times with the barbarian tribe, all of which were put to an end with Ross's power. The 4th day. At the end of the coastline, a black shadow appeared. That is a ship. Immediately after the first shadow appeared, the second shadow, the third shadow, the shadows formed a fleet that is heading towards the direction of Duke Island. There is no earth-shaking momentum, but just to see the ships sailing to this island, it brought a kind of daunting oppression. No one knows when the blue sky was gradually covered by dark clouds. Trafalgar Law stood up and Lafitte leapt from the mast. Shilyu of the Rain walked out of the cabin. Finally here. Everyone looked at the fleet that was coming, and someone whispered in a low voice, and the light shone. The fleet came from Yonko, 4 emperors, beast, pirates. Quick! Look, it's the ships from the Beast Pirate Regiment. A special hot air balloon is floating in the sky, looking in the direction of the Duca Island and the sea surrounding it. There are 3 people on the hot air balloon. One of the 3 men on board, with a telescope in hand, looked nervous and excited as the ship headed towards the Ghost Hand pirates. Big news. This is the exclusive big news. Morgan put down the telescope, and the excitement in his eyes was unstoppable. He said, "Get us a little closer, this distance will be very vague." "No, Morgan, any more close and we will be discovered by them." The 2 men stood at the back of Morgan and heard Morgan's orders. They all wiped the cold sweat on their foreheads and repeatedly dissuaded him. It would be nothing if the Beast Pirates and the Ghost Hand Pirates ignored them after discovering them, but if not, then it will spell a disaster for them. After all, they are 2 of the 5 emperors. It's the same thing, just a little closer, just a little bit. Morgan indulged a bit. He had a good relationship with Big Mom and had a little bit of contact with Kaido, but he has only seen the Ghost Hand Pirates once. His 2 subordinates bite their teeth, and finally control the hot air balloon to get slightly closer, and by this time, the Beast pirate ship was already to the Duke Island. The clouds are densely covered. On the shore of the Duke Island, Ross stands on a reef with a calm look, allowing the seawater and tumbling waves to slap on the reef. Behind him, Shilyu of the Rain and others are all showing their fighting spirits. At last, as the beast pirates' ships approach, Ross and others were able to see the tall figure at the front of the deck of the main ship in the center. He stood there, his face heavy with muscles, and without speaking, but already with a terrible dignity and power which gradually came upon them as the ship drew near. Yonko, 4 Emperors, Hyakuju no Kaido, 100 Beast Kaido. On the other 3 ships, the high-level cadres of the beast pirates stood at the forefront of the deck. They were also the 3 major disasters of the famous New World. They were not inferior to Shiryu of the Rain in terms of strength. Kaido-sama, it seems that the ghost hand pirates are gathering on the shore. A member of the beast pirates stood next to Kaido, and after observing the situation on the coast, he reported it to Kaido. His face did not show any fear, even though the ghost hand pirates' name shocked the world, but they belong to the beast pirates. Why would they fear an upstart newcomer who doesn't know his limits? Even if it is the Whitebeard pirates, Kaido alone has fought them out more than once. Kaido didn't respond to his men. At this moment, his eyes converge and land on Ross on the shore, and Ross is also looking towards Kaido from the distance. Kaido is an old emperor of the New World, while Ross represents the peak of the new era. The conflict between Kaido and Ross represents the collision between the old emperor and the new 5th emperor. The fleet approached the coast and began to slow down. 100 Beast Kaido stared at Ross and was somewhat surprised by his imposing manner in front of him, and he also noticed that Ross wasn't showing any fear being in his presence. He slowly said, "Ghost Kid, what you said in the Icefield Island, you should have not forgotten." "I remember," Ross said in a calm voice, looking at 100 Beast Kaido calmly, and said, "I just wanted to see if the beast pirates truly cannot be offended." When he heard Ross, Kaido was not angry. Instead, he slightly grinned and showed a rough smile. A horrible momentum suddenly burst out of him and pressed towards Ross. Haoshoku Haki. For Kaido, what he hates most is nonsense. Since Ross has provoked the beast pirates, then it is as simple as ending it with a war. Under Kaido's Haoshoku Haki, the clouds in the sky seem to have been towed and rolled up in a frenzy. For a time, it seems that the sky is going to crack, and it is rolling over. Buzz. Ross, with his steady, piercing eyes, stared at 100 Beast Kaido, and at about the same time, his Haoshoku Haki was also inspired and collided with Kaido's Haki. Crackling. 2 Emperor-level Haoshoku Haki suddenly collided in the sea, and for a moment, it seemed to explode with countless black bolts of lightning, intertwined in the void. Although the 2 people did not physically strike each other, but just the collision of their Haoshoku Haki has brought about an earth-shaking power. The violent waves kept rolling in the sea, and some also lifted towards the sky. Whiz! In the next moment, Ross made a bold move. He took a step forward in the void, and then he caused the rolling waves solidified in front of him and then violently rolled back. The gravity distortion inspired and shrouded the entire surface of the sea in front of it. For a time, the whole sea was roaring wildly, and the waves in front of the beast pirates were flying in the sky up to hundreds of meters high. What happened? Oh, this is not good. The numerous members of the beast pirates become unstable in an instant. As the hull of their ship flies into the sky, their faces are filled with horror, as soon the sea will lay its claim over their life. And almost at this moment, 100 Beast Kaido's face sank and his figure suddenly flashed, breaking the waves and giving rise to an overwhelming force that charged towards Ross. Ross is the one who started first, so he's not going to be polite anymore. The huge body, inspired by the horrible armament Haki which is condensed on his fist, this punch, whether it is the amount of power or the level of armament Haki, exceeds all the characters that Ross has seen so far. But, faced with Kaido's punch, Ross did not show the slightest fear. He gave up the control of the sea and the power of distortion gathered on his fist in preparation to greet Kaido. Under the intense gaze of countless people, 100 Beast Kaido and Ross's fists collided with each other on the coast. Buzz. The disproportionate size of the fist, at the moment of its touch, does not cause any side to fly backward but makes the nearby void seem to be frozen for an instant. Then, under the shock of countless eyes, the air centered on the spot where Ross and Kaido's fists struck, like a drop of water falling into a calm lake, rippling in all directions. The reef just below them was almost blown to pieces in the aftermath of a single attack, and the ripples rippled on the shore like a blow from a great sword, shattering the whole shoreline. The waves are rolling. Some members of the Beast Pirates Regiment stepped in to land the ship back out to sea, but by this time most of their attention was focused on Ross and 100 Beast Kaido. Kaido-sama's attack was blocked. Sure enough, he's not just a guy with a name. Many of the Beast Pirates members saw this scene, and at the same time they were shocked and they also took a deep breath. Since Ross can block Kaido, it would be a tough fight. ZZ. Ross's struggle with Kaido continues, and this one is not based on the stamina and power of distortion, but also the power of Haoshoku Haki. On the other side, Shiryu of the Rain with a cigar in his mouth and his blade in his hand looks at Ross and Kaido for a second, then he moves towards the Beast Pirates' ships. Captain has already started, then I should start too. He has been unable to hold back his bloodlust, and now that Ross and Kaido have begun the fight, there is no need to wait and be patient. Whiz. Almost in a single moment, Shiryu of the Rain suddenly came to the air, and the second-generation Ghost Blade was slowly pulled out by him. The sword edge full of evil spirits suddenly solidified into a cold. This icy wind spread from Shiryu of the Rain's hand and extended all the way to the tip of the sword. -50 degrees. Shiryu of the Rain slowly spit out a word, and then the blade in his hand suddenly smashed out with bluish sword energy and went towards the Beast Pirate ship. The cold fruit was finally taken by Shiryu of the Rain, and after eating it, within a few days, he combined the power of this fruit into his sword arts. Kacha. Kacha. The sea surface was swept by the sword energy, and under the horror-stricken eyes of thousands of people, it condensed into ice inch by inch. The huge sea current suspended in the air that day was also swept by sword energy of Shiryu of the Rain and condensed into a huge ice ball thousands of meters in diameter. Ice sword arts? One of the members of the Beast Pirates looked at the huge frozen ice ball in the sky and his eyes flashed for a moment. Then he suddenly charged into Shiryu of the Rain's sword energy and broke the sword energy. He held the surface of the ice ball with his arms. Ah! With blue veins overflowing on his forehead, he gave a sudden roar, and the huge hockey ice ball was pushed by him and hit Shiryu of the Rain and others on the shore. When Shiryu of the Rain saw this, he raised his eyebrows and said, "I made a mistake. Instead, I helped them." He spoke quietly while holding the second-generation Ghost Blade and suddenly attacked the huge ice ball. The huge ice ball with a diameter of thousands of meters was cut from the middle and split up in 2 equal parts and dropped on the 2 sides of the coast. Are you one of the 3 disasters of the Beast Pirates? After cutting open the huge ice ball, Shiryu of the Rain looked at the man opposite to him and asked, "I don't know which one you are. Why don't you guess?" The man didn't answer. After answering the question with another question, the man suddenly charged towards Shiryu of the Rain. As one of the 3 disasters of the Beast Pirates, the other party's strength is extremely tyrannical, which seemed to be neck and neck with Shiryu of the Rain. However, they were on equal ground in terms of strength because Shiryu did not fully grasp the ability of the cold fruit. If Shiryu can completely control the ability of the cold fruit and develops it to a certain extent and combined with his own sword arts, his combat power can fully reach the level of a marine admiral. "Hey, you guys over there, I'll show you something nice." Seeing Shiryu fighting with one of the 3 disaster, Fishu Ermin didn't want it to be outdone, and he clasped 6 coins in his hands and sandwiched them between his fingers. He crossed his hands in front of him and swept them towards the ship of the Beast Pirates. See. 6 coins flew out in the air in an instant, and with the help of Speed Fruit, they lashed at the Beast Pirates' ships at a terrible speed. The cadres of the Beast Pirates failed to react on time. In the rush, they could only block 4 coins. 2 of them hit the bow of the ship and the bomb of the ship's deck was exploded, and the others fell into the crowd. "Son of a bitch!" Someone from the Beast Pirates regiment roared, looked angrily at Fishu Ermin, and suddenly rushed out of the ship, heading straight for Fishu Ermin at amazing speed. "Damn you!" He looked at Fishu Ermin with a murderous and cold. Undaunted, Fishu Ermin lurched back from the attack to avoid it, and at the same time, he reached for the revolver guns around his waist and started shooting them. Here, Fishu Ermin and Shiryu of the Rain and 2 of the 3 disasters of the Beast Pirates have started fighting, and the other members of the Beast Pirates finally flicked and jumped ashore. The war broke out completely. It has started. In the air far from the battlefield, Morgan, who is on a hot air balloon, is looking at the battlefield from afar. He said, "I don't know if it will bring an end to a legend, or will the Ghost Hand Pirates will be annihilated and become history." The 2 subordinates behind him were nervous and excited. No matter what the outcome of this war is, it will certainly shake the world, and it is even possible for this war to completely rewrite the situation of Yonko, 4 emperors, and lead the times to an unpredictable future. Bang! In the violent collision between Ross and Kaido, the final blow was exhausted and both retreated. There was no land behind Kaido and he fell into the raging waves, while Ross rolled over from the reef and landed on the coast. In this collision, almost no distinction can be made. Kaido is known as the strongest creature in the sea, land and air. It is not a big thing for him to fall into the sea. He came out of the sea in an instant. He spread his hands and came out of the sea water step by step and reached the coast. Your strength is good, ghost boy, whiz. At the moment when his voice fell, Kaido stepped out suddenly. He charged towards Ross with his huge body at a very fast speed. When he punched, the shocks created by the power behind the punch swayed the entire coast. But, if you only got this much, then you aren't worth more than a mosquito. Bang! The fists of the two men collided again, once again inspiring a terrible power which got blasting in all directions. It seems that the entire island is shaking and no one dares to stay near them. He is strong and fast. At the same time as Kaido threw his second punch, a glint entered Ross's eyes as he began to judge Kaido's power. Kaido, whose physical strength has reached an appalling level, is not very strong in pure attack, certainly not as strong as Whitebeard was at his peak state. Otherwise, Whitebeard would have lost his title as the world's greatest. But this so-called not strong attack, combined with the defense of his immortal body, its power is still enough to pulverize a mountain and break an entire small island. Kaido's defense and resilience does not need to be measured and judged. It must be the world's #1. As for his speed and attack, it is no less than Aokiji or Akainu and other marine admirals. And, since Kaido is a strong physical attacker, his armament haki and observation haki are more refined and strong than any marine admiral. Ross's Kenshokan, observation, haki has reached the maximum value and his armament haki is close to reaching that value, so Kaido will be weaker than him in this respect. But he still has an extremely terrifying presence. His battle power is stronger than everyone Ross had encountered so far. Ross had a rough idea of Kaido in his mind, but his mind was not in any chaos and he was quite excited. He wanted to know what his strength was now. War. Instead of suppressing the excitement, Ross took a deep breath and let it boil, bringing out all the power of distortion and fighting Kaido with it. Whiz. Whiz. When Ross and Kaido confronted each other, the other beast pirates also rushed to the coast, and the giants led by Haruden greeted them. In front of the three giants of sand, metal, and barriers, the many zone abilities users in the beast pirates were as small as toys. Even if they had a large number and are crazily rushing at the giants, it is like a group of dogs besieging a giant elephant. The giant elephant will shake off or even kill a lot of them just by moving, so that the group of dogs can do nothing to them and the defense of the elephant will not be easily punctured by the dogs. Your opponent is me. Trafalgar Law holds his Kikoku blade and looks on impassively at a group of members of the beast pirates. Today, he has grown much faster than the original and is now as strong as Lafitte, who is a little weaker than Doflamingo. The beast pirates members were cut horizontally and vertically under Law's ability. Even the pirates with a bounty of 400 million berries were defeated easily in front of him and they were not his opponent even when they all rushed towards him. Here we go. Robin's eyes were calm. It has been nearly 6 years since she came from West Blue as the first person to follow Ross. In these 6 years, she has experienced numerous practices and bloody battles, encountered marine admirals, and fought against various powerful opponents. Now, her strength is not what it used to be. In the case of a one-on-one, her fighting power is inferior to that of the fast-growing Trafalgar Law, but now she has the doppelganger ability. Although she cannot produce thousands of doppelgangers, but creating 7 or 8 doppelgangers is no problem. These doppelgangers have the same strength as her original body and they can use armament haki. Every single one of them is enough to fight the elite pirates of the Yonko, 4 Emperors pirates. What are you all doing? Watching the attacks of the Beast Pirate Regiment being forcibly restrained by the Giant Regiment in Lafitte, Law, and others, the last of the 3 disasters, Jack the Drought appeared on the shore and showed a trace of bloodlust in his eyes. He took a step toward Robin's doppelganger. With one move the doppelganger turned into petal and disappeared. Even when using the armament haki to augment her defense, her doppelganger still failed to block the attack. Kill them all. Jack's voice spread on the battlefield and with a repressed and heart-rending face, he began to rampage on the battlefield. Whether it was Law or Lafitte, they were forced to retreat and could not fight. And just when he charged towards the giant of sand and broke his sand armor defense with one strike, various bolts of thunderous lightning dropped from the sky. Crackling. Among the thunderbolt arcs, Haruden clenched his fists and punched Jack. Jack also punched back and both retreated. Leave him to me. Haruden stared at Jack and his expressions were calm, and Rode and others saw it and continued to fight with the other pirate of the Beast Pirate group. Of all the crew members of Ross, Law was not the fastest riser. The fastest riser was Thunder Giant Haruden. With the help of Rumble Rumble Fruit, he has now entered the power level of Doflamingo Ladder. Who are you? Jack attacked twice but Haruden completely blocked him, his eyes filled with blood as he asked him in a deep voice. I am lighting. Haruden stood in the thunderlight and responded with a cold voice at the same time. The thunder is being wantonly stimulated in his body and the crazy thunder flow spread in his body, so that he was taller than Jack's body and he was becoming more and more huge, emitting the glow of thunder and lightning. 200 million volts. Thor's form. This is the ability that Haruden has only recently developed and was directly used by him. Jack looked up at the thunder giant Haruden, which was tens of meters high. His face changed and he looked a little suppressed, but he still roared and pulled out the scimitars and slammed them into Haruden's leg. Haruden held the empty space with his hands, and an arc of thunder and lightning condensed in his hands. He roared and threw the thunder towards Jack. Bang! The terrifying arc of lightning swept up the coast and some members of the Beast Pirate group, who came too close, were left blackened by the lightning, spewing smoke from their mouths and causing casualties within their ranks. Law was also in the range of attack. He did not hesitate to use Room's ability to leave the range of lightning strike and told Haruden at the same time. The scope of the attack is too big, Haruden. Got it. Haruden replied and turned to look at Jack. Although Jack has rough skin and thick meat and with the defense he got from the Ancient Zone fruit. Model Ancient Mammoth plus his extremely strong armament hockey, he is very durable. But even with all that, it became impossible for him to remain unscratched under the lightning attack of Haruden. He is angry. His eyes are red with anger as he roared and charged towards Haruden. However, as a thunder giant, Haruden not only has a tyrannical attacking power but he also has a speed that is completely inconsistent with his size. He avoids Jack's front charging attack and slammed a lightning strike against Jack's back. However, Jack, who has a bounty of 1 billion berries, is not easy to deal with, not to mention that he is one of the main pillars of the Beast Pirates as one of the 3 disasters. He is like a skinny and equivalent weak version of Kaido. It doesn't look like he can be defeated in a short time. Haruden noticed that Jack was very strong and had a strong defense and he was not suffering from too much injury. He even healed at a certain speed. Haruden could not help but slowly open his mouth. It is difficult to kill Jack, who is very strong and has a tough defense, and Haruden is in the process of fighting with him. From time to time, he will come with a large-scale attack or long-range lightning strike. The Beast Pirates members are miserable with these lightning attacks. In addition to the 3 disasters, there are a large number of pirates in the Beast Pirates that have a bounty of more than 340 million berries. After some started fighting with Lafitte and others, there are still some left. But the fighting force on Ross's side is extremely flexible, such as Trafalgar Law and Lafitte, are extremely resistant as the giant regiments is able to take the advantage of their large size and power to fight with enemies, but unable to form a victory. Moreover, Shiryu of the Rain, Fishu Ermin, and Haruden, respectively, almost all had the upper hand on the 3 disasters, and they were able to make a small effort to deal with other cadres of the Beast Pirates. The situation is in a deadlock. It is extremely difficult for anyone to win or lose in a short time. When the Ghost Hand Pirates and the Beast Pirates struggled with each other, the fight between Ross and 100 Beast Kaido had already entered the peak state where both of them are using almost all of their powers and punching each other. Bulky Fist. After avoiding Kaido's frontal attack, Ross's figure flickers to Kaido's rear using distortion space and he delivers a punch on Kaido's back. On Kaido's back, the dark armament hockey emerged, which resisted Ross's strike, but the force behind it was still there, which caused Kaido to squat forward. Whiz! Ross continued to move forward and slammed into action, while Kaido rolled over and folded his arms in front of him, slamming his legs against Ross as he resisted Ross's attack. Boom! Ross fought back and armament hockey condensed. After getting hit by 100 Beast Kaido's attack, Ross, suspended in midair, did not fly directly upside down, but only briefly, before placing his foot on Kaido's chest. Bang! Kaido couldn't avoid it. Under Ross's foot, the earth under his feet was broken like a spider web, and his legs embedded in the sand. After all, Ross was faster than Kaido, and even if Kaido had a top-notch Kenbanshoku, observation, hockey, Ross was usually able to attack him 10 times before Kaido had a chance to find him. It doesn't hurt. Kaido's body jerked, and the earth instantly burst apart as he suddenly jumped up. His huge hand grasped into a fist and he slammed into the air. Ross's figure flashed and he appeared on Kaido's back again by using distortion space. Boom! Kaido responds in advance by stiffening his attack with a wave of his arm, reaching out with his right hand and grabbing Ross's body. As Kaido's Kenbanshoku, observation, and armament haki are top even among the Yonko, 4 emperors, pirates, Kaido naturally got adapt to Ross's space movement, although he still can't handle it completely, but he doesn't take much time to react. Pa! With one kick, Ross distorts Kaido's hand so that it can't be pulled together. Then he comes up front and punches Kaido in the head. When Kaido saw it, he simply didn't evade and let the attack hit him. When Ross attacked, his palms slammed from the left and right, like a fly. Buzz! Ross punched Kaido's nose and the terrifying power of distortion broke Kaido's armament haki, causing his nose to be hit hard and blood to burst out. At the same time, Ross's body also appeared in the middle of Kaido's palms. Even in the final moments of him getting out of there by using distortion space, he was still affected by the attack. Kaido's attack is not as strong as the original attack of Akainu, Kizaru, and CP0 Chief, but because his armament haki is more powerful and Kizaru and Akainu, it reaches the top level. Even though it can't break the space, it can directly fight with the power of distortion and bring the distortion to a level again. In this regard, Ross is not very surprised. If the space class ability can be used to defeat Kaido, then 2 admirals would have teamed up to suppress Kaido and then they would casually use Blueno's door fruit to open the door and close the door with air, cutting Kaido's body in half, but that's not possible. This would obviously be not so easy. Although Kaido can't break the space, he can directly fight against the power of distortion with his top-level armament haki, so that the distortion space is re-smoothed and the playing ground become leveled where the space abilities do not hold much of an advantage over him. Kachikacha. Appearing not far away, Ross stretches his body, crackling all over his bones, and looks at Kaido with flat eyes. Your attacks are the same, it doesn't hurt. Kaido is not as aggressive in his attacks, although he is pretty scary with his ultimate armament haki. Ross is also pretty much equipped with the high-level armament haki, plus the fact that it takes a certain amount of strength to get past the wall of distortion, plus his tenacious talent and rock talents are most useful in this scenario. Kaido also noticed Ross's strength at this time. Ross has a similar speed to Akagami, red hair, but also has a much stronger body than Akagami, red hair. His attacks are also extremely powerful. His Kenbanshoku, observation, and armament haki are at the top level and his Haoshoku haki is also not weaker than his. Ross has the advantage in speed and slightly better attack power. And his advantage is that he has the strength of an immortal body, which can withstand Ross's attack completely. Even if he is hit by a blow on his weaker spots and he gets a nosebleed, he can instantaneously heal from it. I haven't had such a battle in a long time. Kaido doesn't think about winning or losing anymore, but instead, he's got a rare burst of energy as he charged towards Ross and continuing to punch Ross. It doesn't matter who wins or loses. The most important thing is to have a good fight with Ross, that's enough. Me too, it's been a long time since I've had such a tough opponent. Ross watched the oncoming 100-beast Kaido, and as he punched him, he slowly opened his mouth to reply and continued his fight with Kaido. With the distortion of space and the direct confrontation with Kaido, the battle between the two of them lasted from morning to evening, and they entered the depths of the island from the coast. There was still no victory or loss, or even no advantage or disadvantage. Some surviving barbarians on the island were shivering in the distance. Even the leader among them had no resistance to the power of Ross and 100-beast Kaido, and fear and horror were plastered on his face as he shivered. This little power is too weak. 100-beast Kaido resisted Ross's punch, his head turned a little to the left, then he jerked his head and punched Ross. Ross snorted and utilized distortion space. With a sudden twist, Ross avoids Kaido's fist, to the right of it, and slams down with a backhand. Your speed is too slow. Boom! Kaido waved his arm and blocked Ross's blow. Ross clenched his fists and the power of distortion condensed on top of his fists as he rushed towards Kaido and launched violent rainstorm-like attacks and continues to punch him again and again. Kaido roared, confronting Ross face to face and punching him with the same ferocity and speed, causing the whole earth to cause violent tremors. It was as if the entire island was shattering. After dozens of consecutive punches, Ross gives a loud gulp and flees, catching Kaido on a break and kicking him hard in the chest. Boom! Kaido suddenly flew upside down, smashing through the forest and flying back for nearly 100 meters before coming to a stop. There was a trace of blood on his mouth, and a blue-purple footprint appeared on his chest, but as time passed, the footprint quickly became shallower and shallower until it disappeared completely. Ah, can't die. Kaido stood up again, wiped the blood from his mouth, spat out a mouthful of blood-tinged spit, and touched the back of his head as if he were still at the battle. He slammed his legs and ran across the ground, and the whole person rushed into the ropes again. It was difficult for Ross to make a fatal attack on Kaido. Even if he made an heavy attack and hit Kaido on the head with a heavy hammer, he would at best stun Kaido briefly. In turn, it is almost impossible for Kaido to seriously hurt Ross. With Ross's current defense, unless Kaido caught him off guard and hit him in the back with an all-out attack, it would only be possible for him to cause Ross to spit out blood but not hurt him badly. Coupled with the resilience of tenacious talent, he is no worse than the current Kaido, so Kaido can't do anything to Ross. The battle between the two was almost a stamina contest. Simple talking about stamina, Ross is still inferior to Kaido, but battle is not like running a marathon. Ross punches Kaido on the chest and damages him. It takes stamina to recover this damage. One day and one night passed. The fight between the two does not see any results. As for the coastline, out of the Beast Pirates and the Ghost Hand Pirates, only 3 disasters and Shiryu of the Rain are able to fight, and everyone else has a short pause because of stamina consumption. In this kind of intensive battle, Lafitte, Law, and others do not have the stamina that can last them a day or night, not to mention the injuries they received in the fight. Shiryu of the Rain and others are better, but after a day and night of fighting, they are also taking a temporary rest. After the two sides retired to a certain distance, they were watching the fight between Ross and Kaido. Their fight was going on for a full day and night now, but instead of becoming weaker, the battle between Ross and Kaido became more and more intense. That ghost hand Ross was able to take on Lord Kaido at this level. After all, the opponent is the acknowledged 5th Emperor. Someone screamed. But, except for the Whitebeard, no one is the Kaido-sama's opponent. Keep your eyes on that Shiryu of the Rain and others, don't let them interfere with Kaido's fight. Yes, keep your eyes upon the Ghost Hand Pirates. One of the 3 disasters sat cross-legged and slowly said. They had a fierce battle with the Ghost Hand Pirates for a day. The final outcome was that the Beast Pirates lost more than a dozen people and dozens of people were injured, and there wasn't anyone dead at the other party. They will continue to fight. The Ghost Hand Pirates will certainly have casualties, but they are also bound to suffer heavy casualties. Then there is Kaido. There is absolutely no need for them to worry about him. As long as Kaido defeats Ross, the Ghost Hand Pirates will surely collapse. Ho ho ho, I haven't seen Captain fight so hard in a long time. Lafitte stands at the top of a tree, looking out over the open battlefield between Ross and Kaido, deep in the island. His enemy is Kaido after all. Law took a sip of water and replied in silence. Fishu Erman shrugged and said, "It looks like we're not going to be able to finish this fight in 2 or 3 days. The Beast Pirates guys aren't going to wait 2 or 3 days. So what?" Shiryu of the Rain wiped the 2nd-generation Ghost Blade with a cloth and said, "They're just extra heads on a chopping board." In this battle, Shiryu of the Rain had a claw mark on his chest. The wound was not deep, and it did not affect his battle proficiency. It was simply wrapped up. Lafitte's clothes were broken, but he did not receive any serious injuries, and the others were mostly fine except for Metal Giant, who had a laceration on his chest and abdomen. Metal Giant's wound was also caused by the fact that he had rushed to the rescue Robin after she came under siege during the fight. The wound has been stitched up, and with Gert's heal fruit ability, it is already close to healing within this half day. At the moment, it's night on the island. In the darkness, Ross and 100 Beast Kaido were still engaged in fierce confrontation. In the face of the most top power in the sea, night and day had little influence on them. Observation Haki was almost used to perceive and move in the fight, with a low visual dependence. Distortion, restraint. In the darkness, after he and Kaido twist and land, a burst of power of distortion pours into the earth with a step, and the sand and stones surge wildly, twisting towards Kaido's legs and binding them. And in the next moment, Ross rushed toward Kaido. Boring little trick. Kaido is arrogant, but he has the strength to be arrogant. He pulled his legs and the distortion area of about 10 meters around him was blown up, and he punched Ross and crashed into the air with Ross. The 2 fists interlocked and Ross's face remained unchanged. He stepped in the void and the whole man leapt toward the head of Kaido. Ground Vine Strangle. Bang long. With the explosion of the power of distortion, the earth surges crazily around thousands of meters, and huge blocks of sand and stones burst into the air and fly towards Kaido. There is a power of distortion in the sand, which may not hurt Kaido, but the impact of these sand blocks is enough to make Kaido's feet squat. Ooh! Faced with numerous sandstones that were hitting him in all directions, Kaido howled and instantly blasted the sandstones. But at this moment, Ross rushed out of the darkness and hit Kaido on his chest. Kaido had no time to counterattack and was forced to cross his arms and block the coming attack in front of him. Under the Ross attack, his body swayed slightly and he stepped back toward the rear. Bang! A huge sandstone with a diameter of hundreds of meters came and slammed into Kaido's left shoulder. Kaido did not get hit, but his entire body tilted to the right, revealing an opening. Without hesitation, Ross pulled his sword out of its sheath and plunged it into Kaido's back. Buzz! The power of distortion is condensed on the blade. Kaido utilized his armament haki to resist the attack, and Ross's blade created sparks when it came in contact with Kaido's body, and it did cause some damage. Huh? Kaido bellowed and tried to grab him with his sword. Without the slightest hesitation, Ross pulled his sword back decisively. With one step back, he was already tens of meters away. The wound on Kaido's lower back overflowed with the blood, but it quickly became crusted and detached at the speed visible to the naked eye, eventually healing completely. As one of Yonko, 4 emperors, he has lost many times because he has singled out other Yonko, 4 emperors, pirates and marines. He has suffered many sword injuries and has been pierced by Akagami. Red hair. Even Akagami, red hair, couldn't kill him. Is that all there is? Is there anything better? Show me something more interesting. Being stabbed by Ross, Kaido didn't get angry but instead licked his mouth, showing a heart-rending expression with a horrible smile, and he suddenly charged into Ross again. Ding ding. Ross is shaking from left and right, holding the cursed blade Murasama, constantly resisting Kaido's attack. The distortion space needs to fully stimulate the power of distortion. It consumes a lot of stamina. Ross does not use distortion space on all of his attacks on Kaido, as it will only waste his stamina. Fighting Kaido is not the same as fighting Akagami, red hair. If you're dealing with Kaido, it's no big deal in terms of the armament haki, physique, and resilience of Ross, but if he's dealing with Akagami, red hair, he would have to be very careful, because he would be dealing with a swordsman. A single mistake and a single hit, that's all it would take to end his life. Boom. Kaido's fist kept falling, and finally, with a bang, he broke Ross's power of distortion and knocked him back a few meters. It's my turn. Ross's feet stepped on the ground that created cracks for dozens of meters, but his face remained the same and he calmly raised his head to look at Kaido. His confrontation with Kaido till now consists of him using the power of distortion on Kaido and caused him any amount of damage that he could, and then Kaido will burst out with his power and Ross would conserve his strength while defending himself. It was better for him to have this kind of rotational fight. If Kaido continuously bursts out with all his power, then this fight would have concluded a long time ago, as no one knows what terrible physical power exists within Kaido's vast body. Whiz! As Ross stepped out, he suddenly reached Kaido's legs, where the blade of his sword struck him with sharp precision. Kaido didn't have the slightest fear of this attack, as his observation haki had already caught Ross's movements. He immediately attached a black-painted armament haki to his legs and kicked Ross. Bang! Sparks are splashing. The tip of Ross's sword cut through the armament haki, leaving a bloody mark on Kaido's leg, but it couldn't penetrate his tough muscle and hurt his hamstring. Since Ross was the first to take the shot, Kaido caught him in action and kicked him sideways, slowing him down by a beat and weakening him by a beat. Whiz! After piercing Kaido's leg skin and leaving a wound, Ross didn't pause. His figure flickered as he avoided Kaido's huge palm. He came to Kaido's back, holding the hilt of his sword with both hands. With a sudden burst of power of distortion, he steps forward. Distortion. Spatial cut. Just the next moment, Ross's figure suddenly appeared on Kaido's back, and at the same time, a terrifying distortion arc appeared in the void, connecting the 2 points that Ross crossed. This distortion arc runs through Kaido's chest and abdomen and then bursts open. See. The power of distortion leaves a white scar on Kaido's chest and belly, and the tiny tearing sound comes from inside him. This is what Ross has figured out in this fight as he continues to use the ability of space distortion. This sword attack needs a large amount of power storage time, but once it is displayed, it must pass through 2 points. Because it is instantaneous cut in space, it is almost like a man-id passing through Kaido's body with a sword. Countless tears appeared on Kaido's body that seemed to be broken by the edge of the sword. When the sound of sword edge ceased, Kaido's body standing still and his mouth began to drip blood down to the ground below. Kaido looked at his chest and abdomen, and there was a trace of confusion in his eyes, not understanding how Ross managed to get the attack inside him. The attacks done on his outside body does not matter, all of them are resisted by his body, but the attack inside his body is not trivial, even if the scope is very small, but the power of distortion twisted his internal organs together and cracks appeared everywhere on them. If the power of this move got any bigger, it would be very dangerous for him. Pity. Ross stabbed his sword to the ground, panting slightly. Although it is not clear what is happening in Kaido's body, but it is possible to guess what Kaido's body is going through by seeing the blood spilling from his mouth. Unfortunately, this is a slow build-up attack and the opportunity is not easy to find to use this attack, and the current attack range is too small. The palm-sized area of Kaido's body that was just struck was far from fatal, and in front of Kaido's massive body, it cannot be even considered as a serious injury. Kaido's body is certainly different from that of a human being, but to what extent, even now, Ross only has a rough estimate of his strength, which cannot be accurately determined. If he was still a normal person, breaking a head or heart would be enough to kill Kaido, which means that with a little more precision Ross could have killed Kaido. But if Kaido's body is similar to that of Marco's Phoenix Immortal Fruit, not to mention the heart and head, everything can be regenerated. This is the world of Devil Fruit. Any magical abilities are possible. Naturally, this hit is almost as serious as the total amount of damage Ross inflicted on Kaido before this. It is a tremendous drain on Kaido's stamina. After all, no one can restore their wounds indefinitely, not even Marco's fruit can do that. This little trick had a bit of power. Kaido quickly recovered from his internal wounds. He forgot what had happened and he looked up at Ross and opened his mouth, saying those words in a cold tone. "It's a pity that you couldn't hit any key organs." Ross had been overcharged and he was a little spent, and Kaido had been injured and had not able to attack, but Kaido had recovered and he had recovered from his injuries. The key? There is no such thing. Kaido snorted and suddenly charged into Ross, and launched a storm of attack. Although his preference is suicide, it does not mean that he wants to die in Ross's hands. He likes to commit suicide because no one can kill him, even he himself, but if there is a force that can kill him, then he will not ask for death even if he has a problem with his brain. That kind of death is meaningless, unless Ross can beat him in one-on-one combat and kill him. Clang! Clang! Under Kaido's storm-like attacks, Ross continued to retreat. In the process of parrying, he also stimulated the power of distortion, causing the earth to continually collapse, condensing a piece of sand and stone and smashing into Kaido, blocking Kaido's fierce offensive. In a flash, the two of them hit a distance of 1,000 meters, leaving the island in a mess. Under the great power and domination of Ross and Kaido, the dominant beasts, such as the silverback giant ape and others, almost ran away, hardly daring to look at them. After Kaido's continuous attack, a heavy punch hit Ross's blade and sparks flew as Ross got slammed into the underground. The ground cracked open and cracks like spiderwebs generally spread in all directions. Utilizing the power of distortion and armament hockey to resist Kaido's punch, Ross's arms became slightly numb, but the problem is not serious, and the power of distortion in his body has been increased. Distortion. Spatial cut. Ross once again concentrated his power and held the hilt of the blade in both hands and rushed out of the underground. However, Kaido, as the king of one-on-one fights, will not remain a constant target. One of the things that Kaido learned was that it didn't take much notice, and the other was that Ross used his power to create opportunities. This time it was not so easy to hit. Ross's figure suddenly broke the void and appeared tens of meters away, but Kaido avoided the spatial path that Ross had cut, only missing the edge of his shoulder. A distortion crack appeared in the void and disappeared quickly. Kaido's shoulder is attached to the dark armament hockey, with a slight distortion of the muscles due to the penetration of the power of distortion with spatial movement. With a cold face, Kaido raised his hand and rubbed it against his shoulder, where the tendon quickly returned to its elastic, rubbery nature, and Kaido's terrifying resilience was revealed. A better opportunity must be created to use this trick again. Looking at Kaido, Ross's eyes flashed. While this move can move across space and is incredibly fast, Its forward movement gives opponents a chance to dodge. Although he injured Kaido, he also consumes a lot of his energy. It is, after all, an explosion of power. Whiz! Kaido didn't stop too much this time. After seeing the Ross attack and seeing that Ross was breathing heavily, he decisively rushed forward, wanting to beat Ross. However, he is not very strong in attack, and Ross's physique and recovery ability are also extraordinary. He can't beat Ross as Ross can move instantaneously with his space distortion and can avoid Kaido's attacks. In the process of evading, Ross is calmly judging his current position. During the battle with Kaido, he was in the spirit heart state and remained absolutely calm, even though he was in a fierce battle with Kaido. Even though he couldn't judge every move correctly and most of them were instinctive, his thoughts remained clear throughout the battle. Close to them. Finally, after another collision with Kaido, Ross flew backward and landed dozens of meters away, his eyes flashing with a cold light. Let's do this. It is natural to treat 100 Beast Kaido with a certain amount of respect. One cannot just think about a single person alone, but he had to use his teammates who can make a difference. See. Almost without waiting for Ross's signal, a burst of cold ice sword energy suddenly broke through the air and slammed into 100 Beast Kaido. And at the same time that the slash came, a bullet came with a loud sonic bang, which seemed a little bit slower, but it was a lot faster than the sword attack, and both of these attacks arrived at the same time. Shiryu of the Rain. Fishu Ermin. In the process of confrontation with Kaido, Ross led Kaido in the direction of Shiryu of the Rain and others, and he finally fell into the attack range of Shiryu of the Rain and Fishu Ermin and others. Huh? Kaido grimaces but doesn't get angry when he senses someone is interfering with his battle. This had happened against the other Yonkos more than once before. His arms crossed in front of him, blocking the sword energy and the bullet that came. Bang! The cold sword energy burst, leaving a little frost on Kaido's arm, and the bullet was also fried and smashed, leaving a subtle white spot on Kaido's arm. Defying Shiryu of the Rain and Fisherman's strike, Kaido doesn't step back, and the pride of one of the Yonko, 4 emperors, was displayed. Thunderstrike. And just as Kaido blocked Shiryu of the Rain and the Fisherman attacks, the third attack came down. It was a terrifying torrent of whale electricity that ran right across Kaido's body. Crackling. Kaido's hair flew up under the lightning strike, and for a time his hair was scattered, but Hariden's thunder didn't leave any burnt wounds on him. Bathing in the thunder, he's like a god. However, just as the thunder arc was flashing, Ross's figure flashed and appeared directly above Kaido. He did not perform the spatial cut, because there was no time to save energy. He directly concentrated a pure power of distortion on the sword edge and chopped fiercely at Kaido's head. Due to the triple efforts of the members of the Ghost Hand Pirates, Kaido was unable to parry Ross's blow, and he was unable to move his body and was forced to tilt his head to one side. Clang! In the shower of sparks, Ross's sword edge cut deep between Kaido's shoulder and neck, several inches below the bone. This body is a little too hard. Fishu Ermin appeared in the treetop not far away, looking at Kaido's body with a heavy look in his eyes. It was a blow from Ross, and in this case of all-out power attack, he had not able to cut off Kaido's arm. Shiryu of the Rain holds the second-generation Ghost Blade, sipping a cigar, and he said with a flash of light in his eyes. If it was so easy for him to be killed, he wouldn't be 100 Beast Kaido. I once participated in the execution of Kaido, and those Marine Admiral teamed up with each other and still failed to kill him. It sounds too exaggerated. Lafitte shrugged and looks at Kaido without a hint of hidden fear. It sounds exaggerated, but judging from their joint attack and Ross's sword, I'm afraid the truth is similar to what Shiryu of the Rain said. Ah! Kaido bellowed and tightened his muscles to squeeze the cursed blade Murasama, which caused the blade to not penetrate further in his body, and he attacked Ross with his other hand. Ross gave up his intention to destroy Kaido's shoulder blade. Ross whipped out two-handed blade Murasama, avoiding Kaido's grasp. It was no small feat to be caught by Kaido, but just as Kaido could not be cut through his skull in an instant, he could not be caught by Kaido. -100. Shiryu of the Rain took a breath, and the cigar he was holding in his mouth suddenly turned into ice, and the burning cigar butt also went out instantly, forming a layer of frost. He held the second-generation Ghost Blade and took advantage of the opportunity as he rushed toward Kaido, trying to strike Kaido's heart. But, almost at this moment, a sharp crack in the air came from not far away. Ross and Kaido's fight are closely watched by Shiryu of the Rain and others. The people of the Beast Pirates are naturally watching the fight at this moment. When Ross and Kaido are found moving in the direction of Shiryu of the Rain and others, they immediately set off and rushed over. They did not have any time to block Shiryu of the Rain and Fishu Ermin and others' attack, and the second attack chance will not give a chance. Kaido came with them this time. It was obviously not a plan to be singled out. They couldn't let Shiryu of the Rain and other join forces with Ross to besiege Kaido. Bang! Shiryu of the Rain was blocked in midair. Your opponent is me, Shiryu of the Rain. Get your guns out of my face, then roll over and die. The three disasters of the beast pirates arrived first and went straight to Shiryu of the Rain and Fishu Ermin, followed by numerous cadres and the beasts, and they roared and attacked. A moment ago, Kaido was attacked by Shiryu of the Rain, which hurt Kaido's shoulder. They were worried about being punished by Kaido. At this time, under the eyes of Kaido, they all desperately attacked without holding back their strength. Rainstorm cuts. What Ross has just cast is not spatial cut. There would be no time to do any adjustment after the outbreak of the aftereffects, so in order to avoid Kaido after catching him, he flickers to Kaido back immediately, and the blade in his hands fell like violent rainstorm onslaught. Bang! 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 Every attack that landed on Kaido's back produced a bang or dull thud as if 1,000 cannonballs had struck Kaido, which tottered and fell forward. In the process of falling, the wound on Kaido's shoulder gradually healed. He held his arms around the ground and rolled over, slamming his elbows toward Ross. Whiz! Without saving the power of distortion, Ross avoids Kaido's elbow knock and, before Kaido's shoulder is fully recovered, he delivered another burst of power of distortion against his chest. After retreating several dozen meters, Kaido finally recovered from his shoulder injury. He bellowed and swung his fist at Ross. Your strength is getting smaller and smaller, Ghost Hand Boy. Now, after nearly 2 days and a night of intense fighting, Ross's stamina has been depleted, and although his normal stamina has not decreased, but when it did, it was obviously inadequate. It's enough to beat you. Ross opened his eyes with a cold look in them. He judged the consumption of Kaido to be about the same, because there was a distinct feeling in his heart that Kaido's stamina was not as strong as it had been, and it was obviously that he did not have infinite stamina. So many attacks that caused so many injuries, it is impossible for them to have no effect. Both of their stamina has been depleted by more than half, which means that the final victory of this battle is getting closer. Duka Island. The battle between Ross and 100 Beast Kaido has been going on for 2 days and nights. The news of the encounter, which Morgan had telegraphed a day earlier, had not been written as a press release, but only as underground news, spreading through the dark underground world. All parties have learned the news of the Ghost Hand Pirates and the Beast Pirates fighting in the Duke Island. At the same time, they were also nervous. In particular, some of the forces affiliated with Kaido. However, no one was trying to get to the island of Duka where the fight was taking place. The fight between the two emperors was not easy to watch, and it was already 2 days ago. The first line of news is firmly locked in Morgan's hands, and Morgan has made a fortune from it, and there are not many people who are concerned about the battle between ghosts and beasts. In addition to Morgan, Marine and World Government also received the intelligence report from Duka Island in the first day. As for how they received it so quickly, it is also very simple. Most of the newsbirds in the sky belong to World Government subordinates, and some of those newsbirds carry image Den Mushi on them. Although they couldn't get too close and cause the picture to become blurred, but it can be used to judge the current situation of Duka Island. The entire Marine headquarters has entered the highest preparation, and they may dispatch their forces at any time. Bang! Bang! Ross and 100 Beast Kaido continue to fight. The entire island has been beaten into a mess, and there is hardly any good place left here. The animals living on this island were also caught in the center of the Ghost Hand Pirates and the Beast Pirates, and even though they are very strong, they are nothing compared to Shiryu of the Rain or the Three Disasters. For Ross and 100 Beast Kaido, their first battle was not over, but for Shiryu of the Rain and Three Disasters, it was their second battle. This time, the Beast Pirates gradually gained the upper hand by virtue of the number of people. People like Shiryu of the Rain are difficult to deal with human tactics, but Robin and Lafitte are not strong enough to ignore the influence of human tactics. Once Robin and others are suppressed, it will immediately affect the 300 million bounty elite pirates who have the qualification to intervene in the battle of the Three Disasters. Such a layer of influence will eventually lead to the slope of the winners and losers. The power of the Ghost Hand Pirates is still too weak in the middle and lower layers. But, despite gaining the advantage, the Beast Pirates were unable to defeat Shiryu of the Rain and others within a short time, let alone support Kaido and kill Ross. To intervene in the battle between Ross and Kaido, the person intervening must be at least at the level of the three disasters, otherwise anyone weaker than them will be instantly killed. Sure enough, they are still too strong. In the process of confronting Kaido, Ross did not completely ignore the battlefield where Shiryu of the Rain and others were located. He noticed that they fell into a disadvantaged situation and could not help but whisper. If the Ghost Hand Pirates has the full strength in their middle and lower levels, the situation at this time would have been their superiority, or if they had another member at the level of Shiryu of the Rain, then they would be able to instantly equalize all the disadvantages and even occupy a great advantage. Boom. Distracted by the battlefield of Shiryu of the Rain and others, Ross was hit by 100 Beast Kaido punch and flew backward, breaking several giant trees before coming to a halt. You were distracted, Kaido said with a hint of irritation in his voice. Ross is fighting against him and he is still distracted and not paying attention to the fight, which made him angry. The annoyed Kaido began to explode, his huge fist slamming on the ground, and the whole earth suddenly fell apart, creating an abyss of cracks all the way to Ross. Whiz! Ross jumped into the air. He has very little stamina left, and Kaido in front of him is probably about the same. Ross really wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to kill two of the three disasters, but once he starts, Kaido will not just let him do whatever he wants. The three disasters can't stop him, and similarly, Shiryu of the Rain and others can't stop Kaido. The deterrent power of Yonko, 4 Emperors, is here. Otherwise, Kizaru can go to any of the Yonko, 4 Emperors, territory every day, throwing a Yasukani no Magatama, Kama Jewel of 8 Shaku. And the power of the Yonko, 4 Emperors, pirates will dwindle and the Marine would be able to take care of all the pirates. Deterrence is relative. Now Ross has the only advantage on this side. Girth has not yet started and her heal fruit can not only cure the wound but also restore little bot of stamina when the stamina is exhausted so that people can regain their peak strength in a short time. This is enough to reverse the battle, but once forced to use this ability, it means that both sides will have serious deaths and injuries. Distortion Fist. After avoiding Kaido's attack, Ross came to Kaido's back and punched. Kaido backhanded, his fists colliding with Ross's in the air, and Ross fell back 10 meters, Kaido staggering back 2 steps. While Ross and Kaido continued their battle and Ross tried to finish off Kaido before Shiryu of the Rain and others had a major problem, several ships under the flag of the Beast Pirate Regiment arrived at Duka Island. The reinforcements arrived. Kaido made a sudden decision in dealing with Ross and he didn't bring his entire naval force and only brought the pirates in the nearby area, and the rest of his force was to arrive later. Now 2 days and nights had passed and the fight is still going on, which gave the Beast Pirates enough time to arrive here. Reinforcements. Shiryu of the Rain stepped on Geppo, moonwalked, and was suspended in midair, and saw the ship of the Beast Pirates that had arrived on the shoreline. There was a trace of blood in his mouth and his eyes were filled with cold light. The reinforcements of the Beast Pirates will not have any pirates of the 3 disaster caliber, but there are still many pirates with a bounty of 1 or 200 million. The situation on their side is not favorable. Once the other party's reinforcements come over, the situation is bound to turn sharply. When the time comes, I'm afraid we'll have to rely on Girth's powers. Shiryu of the Rain is confident that he would be able to kill one of the 3 disasters, but the problem is that after killing the other party, it would be difficult for him to retreat, and he will likely die there. Reinforcement. Ross also noticed that the reinforcement of the Beast Pirates had appeared and various thoughts flashed in his mind. He couldn't help but take a deep breath and a decision came to his mind. He watched the 100 Beast Kaido panting slightly and burst out with the remaining power of distortion in his body. Kaido noticed the sudden surge of power in Ross but did not show any fear. The powerful and overbearing-looking Ross rushed forward. Bang! The disproportionate body of the 2 men collided in the air. Ross took the power of distortion to the limit. He didn't try to kill Kaido with the tricks at this moment, but he used every remaining power and sent it to the most useful place at this time. A sword cut, hammer strike, distortion space, teleport steps. In the state of Spirit Heart, Ross's final burst of power strikes were almost flawless, and there was no trace of flaws left for Kaido. After dozens of moves, he finally grasped the situation with speed. Bang! 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 The cursed blade Murasama was shaken out by Kaido, but Ross didn't care and didn't fly over to pick it up again. He rushed towards Kaido and started punching him without any break. Under the series of continuous strikes that Ross formed with his speed, It was difficult for Kaido to form an effective counterattack method which forced him to continuously parry and dodge and continued to retreat under his feet. No moves. Every attack is filled with a pure power of distortion, each punch is on the spot and hit Kaido's body. Ross attacked with a stormy rainstorm offensive, suppressing Kaido, and his the last punch caused Kaido to fly backward. Instead of stopping, Ross bellowed as Kaido flies backward, squeezing out all the remaining power of distortion from his body. With one step, he catches up with the Kaido. It was difficult for Kaido to make any counterattack at the moment, so it was only possible for him to deploy armament haki fully, with his body curled up and his arms folded in front of it, trying to form a defensive position. One punch, two punches, three punches. Ross's fist is constantly falling on Kaido's body, and the black-colored armament haki on Kaido's body began to sound like a drum. The 9th punch, the 10th punch. With the last attack filled with all of Ross's remaining power of distortion, it smashed on Kaido's chest, completely breaking the other side's armament haki, causing Kaido to spurt out blood. The whole person crossed an arc and flew backward. Wherever he went, whether it is trees or rocks, they were all broken, and he couldn't stop himself from flying backward. What's that? Look out! On the battlefield where Shiryu of the Rain was located, the people noticed that Kaido flew from a distance. They were stunned at first, and then their faces changed dramatically, and they retreated toward both sides. There is a pirate who couldn't escape, and the pirate with the bounty of over 100 million berries was smashed by Kaido's body. It is like a pedestrian being hit a truck, and the bones in his body got smashed as he screamed. Kaido-sama. Noticing that the figure was Kaido, a number of pirates formed the Beast Pirates showed an expression of surprise. Finally, 100 Beast Kaido flew out of the island and accidentally hit a ship under the flag of the Beast Pirates, and the ship was suddenly broken and shattered. At the same time, he finally stopped flying backward and fall into the sea. There was silence. How? 3 disasters from the Beast Pirates and many other pirates looked at the scene, and their faces changed dramatically. Their boss, 100 Beast Kaido, was beaten and sent flying into the sea without any further noise. In other words, Kaido lost to Ghost Hand Ross. How is this possible? There is a trace of disbelief on everyone's face as they believed that no one in the world today can beat Kaido in a one-on-one situation except Whitebeard. The Beast Pirates, which originally occupied the upper hand, all paused at the same time and got distracted. Shiryu of the Rain and others naturally would not let go of this golden opportunity, and they all tried their best to suppress the Beast Pirates. Go! Getting caught off guard, several pirates from the Beast Pirates who had the bounty of 200 or 300 million berries got killed. The rest of the pirates woke up from their stunned state at this time like a dream, and they knew that they had lost the war and fled to the coastline. The Beast Pirates retreated. Shiryu of the Rain and the others ran after them for a while, then they stopped one after another. All of them were panting violently, including Robin, who was covered with blood and bruises. Did we win? Fishu Ermin gasps violently with a sweat stain on his forehead and a bloody claw mark on his back, deep in the bone, and he was badly injured. Looks like it. Trafalgar Law took a deep breath and managed to hold his breath. He had a wound on his abdomen, which he did not know what it had pierced, and it was very serious. Lafitte was a little better, but there were also a few blood marks on his body. He looked at the direction of the Beast Pirates' retreat and suddenly turned around. Captain? 100 Beast Kaido smashed through the battlefield and destroyed a ship that had just arrived under the flag of the Beast Pirates, but Ross did not come. Robin lightly glimpsed and her face changed, saying, "Gerd." Yes. Gerd responded by sprinkling a healing dandelion on Fishu Ermin and the others, giving them some relief while sprinting in the direction where Kaido came from. Across a distance of several kilometers, Gerd and Robin saw Ross in a ruin. At this moment, Ross is holding the cursed blade Murasama, which he had just picked up, and he was gasping heavily with a trace of blood in his mouth, and there were some dry blood marks on his body. Captain. Gerd came forward. Ross waved at Robin and Gerd and said, "I'm fine. I'm just short on stamina. Did that Kaido guy got up?" After the final attack on Kaido, Ross's stamina and haki were thoroughly bottomed out, and even using observation haki to continue to perceive got tough for him. Robin saw that Ross was fine and she was relived and told Ross. Broke a ship and fell into the sea without coming out. Well, his situation seems about the same as mine. Ross gradually stopped breathing heavily. Gerd stepped forward and put her hands in the air, and a strange glow emerged from her hand, falling to Ross and wrapping Ross in it. This is the power of heal fruit. Hiss. Ross's sour and weak body, under the cover of this strange light, felt cool and he gradually recovered a small amount of stamina. This healing effect can only be used once for a short time. It cannot restore stamina or damage indefinitely. "How do you feel?" Gerd whispered to Ross after the twilight had cleared. "Not bad." Ross gave Gerd a thumbs up. His observation hockey spread out and covered the battlefield in the distance, and he noticed that all the people of the beast pirates had retreated to the shore. Robin tore off a piece of clothing and simply wrapped a wound on his shoulder and said, "Shall we pursue them?" With Gerd and her ability of heal fruit, they still have the power to go after the beast pirates even though they were badly injured. Ross is trying to affirm Robin's question and go to the coast to chase the beast pirates, but in the next moment, his observation hockey perceives something else. So here they are, on the other side of the island. There is also a ship docked. Ross's observation hockey could only detect the general shape of the ship, not battleship, but a regular sailboat, but that was not the point. The point is that there are several familiar people on the ship. "We don't have to chase the beast pirates. There is a guy who is looking for death and he is coming here." Ross converges on the observation hockey and saves his stamina before saying calmly, and a cold light flashed through his eyes. There can be no mistake. The few breaths he has just felt are the highest level of world government intelligence. CP0. Duca Island. Kilometers away in the sky. The head of the big news agency, Morgan, and 2 of his men had not slept for days, but there was no sign of sleepiness on their faces. Incredible. The beast pirates were repelled back. Morgan put down the telescope in his hand and there was a shock in his eyes. Although the ghost hand pirates have created countless miracles, he was more inclined towards the beast pirates winning this war. After all, Kaido's existence as an undead monster that countless people fear is not just empty talk. But now, the one that was defeated was the beast pirates. Although the ghost hand pirates suffered from injuries, but the situation of the beast pirates is similar. Being able to repel the beast pirates means that the ghost hand pirates have completely stabilized their position as the 5th emperor, and the situation has completely overturned in the New World, Yonko, 4 emperors, pattern. But Master Morgan, they are in trouble. That is the government. Morgan's 2 subordinates suddenly opened their mouths nervously as they saw a new situation. They were paying attention to Duca Island, and the ordinary sailing ship that arrived at Duca Island could not escape their observation. At first, they did not care about them, but when the people on the sailboat came down and boarded the island, they became vaguely aware of them as they recognized them. "Huh?" Morgan's face also changed. He picked up the telescope and looked at the line that went deep into the Duca Island and went straight to the location of Ross and others. His pupil was slightly shrunk. "That is, CP0. Is the government going to step in? It looks like the ghost hand pirates pose an unprecedented threat to the government right now. This is the battlefield of the beast pirates and the ghost hand pirates. If the ghost hand pirates are annihilated by the government in their weakened state, Kaido will not be happy afterward, he will be furious. Although there are constant conflicts between Yonko, 4 emperors, and almost all of them have a default principle, that is to never allow the Marines or the government to interfere in their confrontation. It seems that they are determined to do this." Morgan's eyes flickered as he noticed that instead of slowing down, the CP0 crowd accelerated and charged towards the resting ground of the ghost hand pirates. At this time, the ghost hand pirates and the beast pirates are all exhausted and almost everyone is injured, and they are at the limit of their physical strength. The situation of the ghost hand pirates will be extremely dangerous if CP0 attacks them now. "I don't know if the ghost hand pirates can safely withdraw," Morgan muttered in his heart. On the island, CP0 chief wears a mask and leads the vice chief and 3 captains, 5 in all, to the location of the ghost hand pirates. This time they have 2 missions. One is to recapture the heart of Tenryubito Myasgard, the other is to do their best to destroy the ghost hand pirates, especially ghost hand Ross. They can kill him directly on the spot. There is no need to arrest and bring them to trial. Right ahead. Sensing that they were getting closer, CP0 chief spoke quietly, saying, "Be prepared, even if they and the best pirates are hurt, don't be careless." "Don't worry, chief. It's really unbelievable that they were able to repel the beast pirate, but they couldn't have done it without paying a heavy price." Next to him, the captain and vice chief opened their mouths. Everyone here is proficient in observation hockey and they can perceive the situation of the members of the ghost hand pirates. It is obvious that they are either injured or their stamina is exhausted. Even if this is a Yonko, 4 emperors, level pirate group, They will be too easy to destroy after they had fought with the beast pirates and they are injured. Whiz. Whiz. The group quickly walked through the nearly fragmented island, which was hit, and was getting closer and closer to ghost hand pirates and Ross. In the ruins, Trafalgar Law is doing the simplest treatment for Shiryu of the Rain and others. Everyone is basically seriously injured, although there is no medical box and the like, but with the ability of Surgeon Fruit, Law was able to perform some emergency hemostatic procedures. Too late. Just after Law dealt with Haruden's wounds, his eyes flickered toward the distant ruins, and he slowly opened his mouth without dealing with the injuries of giants like Road and others. The giant's wounds are relatively large, and the most troublesome and slowest to deal with. The CP0 people obviously won't give him time to deal with them. Haruden's wounds are very small and very few. It can be considered as a matter of time before he heals naturally. The scum of government, Shiryu of the Rain took a cigar, put it in his mouth, struck a match, took a puff, pressed his hand on the hilt of his sword, and spat out a puff of smoke. So they are finally here. Ross stood beside him and spoke quietly. Whiz. Whiz. Almost at the moment when the Ross voice fell, the figure of the 5 people of CP0 appeared from the ruins in the distance and they rushed toward them at a very fast speed, and finally fell in front of Ross and others. Shiryu of the Rain and others stood in the ruins, looking at the rushing CP0, with indifference in their eyes, even Fishu Erman's face is showing a hint of cold and killing. I didn't expect you to be able to repel the beast pirates. CP0 chief slowly came forward, his eyes cold and inconspicuous, sweeping over Ross and others, saying, I was planning to intercept your runaway plan after your defeat, but I did not expect to come here to deal with you. Having said that, his tone suddenly became extremely fierce, saying, So, where is the heart of Saint Mjasgard? If it isn't the CP0, you are good at seizing the opportunity. Trafalgar Law stands with Kikoku on his shoulder, looking at the 5 CP0 with a cold look in his eyes. But you'll never get that guy's heart back in this life. CP0 chief's eyes flashed with a cold light and he no longer wasting time and said, You don't want to hand it over? It will only make your death more miserable. He knows that if he continues to drag the time, he will only let Ross and others restore some of their stamina. This time, the ghost hand pirates are the weakest and they would not put much of a resistance. They need to move now. The next moment, 5 people from CP0 suddenly rushed out and rushed to Ross and others. Boom! CP0 chief punches Ross, and Ross doubles his fists in front of him, calmly blocking his blow, without shaking. CP0 vice chief used Rankyaku, Tempest Kick, and kicked Shiryu of the Rain. Shiryu of the Rain crosses his swords in front of him and blocked the energy attack, but the whole person took a step back. The injuries are not the main point is stamina. Whiz. Fishu Erman is able to avoid the hit of CP0 division captain. Haruden took advantage of Rumble Fruit's Thunder Force to actively throw a huge thunder, shrouded the remaining 2 CP0 division captains. In terms of stamina consumption, Haruden is the lowest, and is still in a state of half stamina. Logia's abilities does not consume much stamina, not to mention he is still a giant. Hey, hand over the heart. You should be very clear about the current situation. You don't have the power to fight us now. CP0 Vice Chief observed the situation and said in a plain and indifferent tone. Although Haruden is trouble for them, other people are obviously at the end of the rope. With only Haruden, there is no possibility of a comeback.